I think we're ready to get started with the public comment portion of today's meeting. As a reminder, I'll call on the people who requested to make a comment when they registered first, and all names will be called in the order in which we received your registration. After all those folks have commented, I'll ask if anyone else would like to make a comment, but we will not be taking repeat speakers. You would then use the raise your hand feature on the Zoom platform, or if you're calling in from a phone, you'll type *9. I will call on people to comment in the order in which they raised their hand. During the comment period, I'll post the names of the next few speakers in the chat so you can see when your turn's coming. I will then read the names and ask that you please raise your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen, or to type *9 if you called in by telephone. Please do not raise your hand until I call your name. And that will let me know both that you're on the call and that you're still interested in making a public comment. If you are still on the call, but you no longer wish to make a public comment, please feel free to just not raise your hand and we'll move on to the next speaker. I will call the names of people who have their hands raised, and when I call your name, you'll receive a pop-up on your screen that will allow you to unmute yourself to make your comment. Now, sometimes that pop-up box gets hidden if you have several other windows open on your computer, so I'd recommend closing any open extra windows now. If you're calling in from the phone, you'll hear a prompt to press *6 to unmute your line. Please remember that if you have clarifying questions, you can still type those into the question and answer box on your Zoom platform. We will stop taking new questions once we're finished with the public comment period, so be sure to submit any questions as soon as you are able. A reminder that when BOEM staff receive your question via that question and answer box and begin to review and respond to your question, that question will be moved to the dismissed category in the Zoom platform. And that change in status indicates that BOEM is actively working on a response to your question. So a couple of ground rules for us all to follow during the comment period today. First, please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes, and I'll post a timer on the screen to help keep track of time. At the end of your time, I'll jump in and ask you to quickly wrap up to allow others the opportunity to comment. If you're not able to complete your comments within the allotted time, you can still submit them in writing before the end of the public comment period, which ends on May 2nd, 2024. And second, we appreciate your participation in this meeting, and we ask that participants please be respectful towards everyone who provides comments during today's meeting. You each have a unique and a valued perspective, and no one comment is considered more important than another. Comments that are directed to or are about another commenter are not in line with the intent of today's meeting and will not be allowed. And again, we ask that there's no use of pre-recorded audio or political statements not related to the project included in your comment. Finally, should any of the comments or actions begin to distract from the purpose of today's public meeting, we reserve the right to mute individuals who do not participate respectfully, use derogatory, threatening, or other inappropriate language, and the speaker may also be removed from the online platform. And I apologize in advance for mispronouncing anyone's name. The names of the first few commenters will be posted into the chat, and I'll go ahead and read those names. I would ask that when I call your names, if you would please raise your hand using the button at the bottom of your screen, or press *9 if you dialed in by phone. And I'll call the names of the people that have their hands raised that were on my list, and you'll receive that pop-up box so you can unmute. Then you would also state your name and affiliation, if any, and make your comment. I would call the names of Blair Bailey, Pat Mayer, Sylvia Lockwood, Jean Publi, Enrique Nunez. If you would please raise your hand if you are on the call and you're interested in making a comment tonight. Yes, Sylvia Lockwood, I see you have your hand raised. You should receive that notice to come off mute. Oh. Hi.
Hello?
Yes, hi, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am calling because I am completely opposed to the continuation of offshore wind projects as they now stand. There are too many adverse impacts that are happening. The marine mammals that are dying, although it's claimed that there's no connection, there are harassment authorizations that are authorized for their harm. The Atlantic Shores, excuse me, potential unavoidable adverse impacts say that to marine mammals, that there is an increased risk of injury to individuals due to underwater noise from the pile driving activities during construction, that there are disturbance, behavioral effects, and acoustic masking due to underwater noise from pile driving, vessel traffic, aircraft, geophysical surveys, and geotechnical drilling surveys, wind turbine generation operation, and dredging during construction and operations, increased risk of individual injury and mortality due to vessel strikes during construction and installation, operation and maintenance, and decommissioning, and increased risk of individual injury and mortality associated with fisheries gear. Excuse me. There have not been independent studies that have said that this is safe for our marine mammals. I think that these are aggressive. You should have done studies prior to starting the offshore wind projects that are taking place on the East Coast. That was not done. You're guessing, and yet marine mammals are turning up dead. I don't know how people that are involved at your level are not asking more questions, that are not looking into these deaths. There are projects worldwide that are coming under criticism. There's so much contradictory information in what you're presenting and what is actually out there. And I would hope that people would start to pay attention, not just to the information that the developers are sending, and that the small numbers of people that are in power, for the BPU, for instance, unelected officials that are pushing this agenda as well. I think it's going to harm our environment irreparably, and I hope that you will consider, excuse me, other viewpoints other than what you are currently operating on. I fully support the agenda of Clean Ocean Action. They're independent. They have not received any money from offshore wind companies. They are asking for pilot studies, which I think is completely reasonable. I don't know how we've drifted so far with science from, looking for proof. If people say, oh, well, prove that the marine mammals are dying because of the activities of offshore wind, yet you theorize that they're not. It makes no sense. You're holding us to some standard that you don't abide by yourselves. As government agencies, you have a responsibility. You are supposed to protect the environment, and over again there are damages being done to the environment as a result of these activities, both onshore and offshore. You're going to destroy our wetlands. So many acres and acres of critical habitat for the North Atlantic right whale. What happens going forward, lies on your shoulders. I am all for clean energy. This is not, and I'm completely opposed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I will now read the names of the next 5 speakers. I would ask again that you please not raise your hand until you hear your name called, please. For the next 5 speakers, I have Car Santone, Jean Gell, Margaret Bagley, Ken Borgden, and John Breitling. If you're on the line and you still wish to make a comment, please raise your hand now. John Breitling, you should be receiving a notice to unmute.
Okay, John Breitling, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm John Breitling from Ship Bottom, New Jersey. I'll speak regarding the Atlantic Shores North project to be built in the ocean off Long Beach Island. That's OC SA 0549. Long Beach Island doesn't have a boardwalk or casinos to attract tourists. The tourists come to LBI for its clean water and beautiful beaches. This has created an economy of businesses which support the tourists that are here to relax, swim, and soak up sunshine on the beach. I'm concerned the visible wind turbines will permanently devastate the tourist economy and property values on LBI. Atlantic Shores is installing the wind turbines that will be located in the ocean in an area between 8 and 16 miles off LBI from Barnegat Light south to Holgate. I know this because I measured the distance on charts provided by Atlantic Shores. The turbines are going to be about 1,000 feet tall. On April 9th, 2021, I virtually attended the Beach Haven Taxpayers Association meeting. Among the people on the panel were two representatives from Atlantic Shores, Jessica Daly and Doug Copeland. During the meeting, Jessica Daly said that Atlantic Shores was planning to install as many as possible of the largest wind turbines available in this location, 8 miles off LBI. This adds up to hundreds of the largest 1,000-foot tall turbines starting at area 8 miles off the beach. She also said that the turbines will be concealed by a marine layer of humidity, mist, and fog. On LBI, we have some fog in the spring when the waters are cold, but usually we have good visibility, especially in the summer. Because the turbines are so tall at 1,000 feet, they will be very visible from the beach. The top of a 1,000-foot tower can be seen at a distance of 37 miles. As an example, when you drive onto LBI, towards LBI on Route 72 on the causeway, look to the left and see Barnegat Lighthouse 8 miles away. The lighthouse is 170 feet tall. Imagine the lighthouse to be 5 times taller, or 1,000 feet. Imagine 200 of these giant lighthouses with rotating blades, each as long as a football field, spread out in front of you, 8 to 16 miles off the beach. You will see them all from the bridge before you even get onto the island. Then you'll have to ask yourself, do I really want to rent a house here? Families will not want to come to the beach and see big in-your-face rotating wind machines. They will go somewhere else for a vacation. The turbines will be seen day and night. They will be illuminated at night for ships and aircraft. Atlantic Shores says they will ask the FAA if it's okay to install red aircraft warning lights on top of the towers that only go on when the aircraft are nearby. The sky near LBI is very busy with aircraft all day and night, approaching and departing New York and New Jersey airports. Do you really think the FAA will allow the red strobe lights to be turned off when it's dark? The huge wind turbines in the ocean will leak pollution and oil and chemicals into the ocean. Once the turbines are in place, Atlantic Shores can demand more money for maintenance. Atlantic Shores can also go bankrupt and walk away from the project, leaving the machines in the ocean. How about something different? How about something on land? How about updating our nuclear generating stations? How about fast-tracking nuclear fusion, which creates no nuclear waste? How about a solar panel on every utility pole instead of just a few utility poles? These can be maintained with just one person in a bucket truck. Governor Murphy says the turbines will be just specks on the horizon. Senator Sweeney says you can't see out in the ocean past 3 miles. This is just not true. The Atlantic Shores North wind turbines off LBI will be very, very visible from the beach. They will cause an economic disaster for shore-based businesses. They will pollute the ocean. There has to be a better way. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your comment. As a reminder, I'd ask folks to please not raise your hand until your name is called. The next 5 speakers, Peggy Middow, Michael Skelly, Peggy O'Hara, Scott Carlin, Christina Renna. If any of you are on and you still wish to make a comment, please raise your hand now. Yes, Scott Carlin, I see that you're on. You have your hand raised. You should get that note to unmute.
I'm unmuted, I believe, right?
You are, thank you.
I don't have any prepared comments other than to say I've studied the offshore wind issue for many years as a university professor. Everything that I've read convinces me that moving forward in the New York metropolitan region with offshore wind will help to lower air pollution and improve health in the New York metro region, including here in New Jersey. There's going to be, measurable improvements in air quality as we make this transition to renewable energy and away from fossil fuels. Clearly, the wind turbines themselves are not going to dramatically change air quality here, but the wind turbines are an integral part of an overall shift in energy strategies. As others have suggested, there are concerns in the public about impacts to marine life, and I think those issues are being carefully studied through the various agencies that the presenters have referenced already today. That said, I think there is a need to dramatically increase the resources and efforts to be more protective of marine life going forward, and that we should use the development of this offshore industry as a moment to reconsider both state and federal protections in state and federal waters, and to find new strategies for ensuring the well-being of the entire ecosystem, which includes whales, dolphins, but really the entire fishery system offshore. I'll leave my comments at that for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Read the names of the next 5 speakers, and if you're on and wish to make a comment, I'd ask that you please raise your hand. Brian Thomas, Kay Keating, Zachary Fabish, Tizana Bottino, and Ann Poole. Tizana Bottino, I see that you're on. You should get that notice to unmute.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tiziana Bottino, and I'm a senior organizer with Sierra Club. I am actually based in Northern Virginia, but it's important to me to testify for this project today because pollution knows no borders. Climate change is not limited by state lines, and therefore I strongly support the environmentally responsible siting and equitable build out of this offshore wind project, as more clean energy infrastructure will help everyone transition away from dirty fossil fuels, reducing the harmful emissions we're all vulnerable to, and consequently promoting public health by improving our regional air quality. Another reason why I support this project is because Virginia is part of the PJM interconnection. If New Jersey can help bring more energy online, then Virginia can tap into more clean energy as well, thanks to our shared interconnection. If that was to happen, we wouldn't have to rely on fracked gas for more than half of our energy needs, which is a source of pollution for our communities and others in the PJM network, especially since according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Virginia's electricity consumption is greater than its total in-state generation, and the state receives additional power from the 2 regional grids that supply the state. But offshore wind isn't just about energizing our power grid, it's also a driving force behind New Jersey's economic growth. Predictions indicate that the typical wind farm off the coast of New Jersey could generate 4,300 jobs and inject $702 million into the state's economy. These employment opportunities span various sectors such as manufacturing, transportation, construction, engineering, and operation and maintenance, all contributing to a green and sustainable future. These jobs aren't just figures, they represent local families securing their livelihoods and propelling our communities towards a prosperous tomorrow. In essence, offshore wind power presents a solution to the challenges posed by climate change while advancing our state's New Jersey's objective in economic development, public health, and environmental justice. I strongly encourage you to take this decisive action to expedite our shift towards a clean energy future, safeguarding the well-being of New Jersey's most vulnerable communities. Thank you once more for your attention and the chance to share my input today. Have a great day.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter will be Brian Thomas. Should receive that notice to unmute.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. I've been pretty outspoken against this project. I'm going to continue to be as well. But it's not just offshore wind. I've been also outspoken against liquid natural gas when they were trying to drill for it. I think it was about 12 years now. And I have to say, there's nothing equitable about this project when you're talking in terms of our voices have been silenced, both as municipalities and as residents, and the residents we represent, by a law that was passed in the middle of the day without any notification to municipalities of what was going on. And I also want to find out, because I've not been yet given any clarity about this, because the borough I represent is Neptune City. And there's been a lot of talk about a substation in Neptune City, and we need notification as to whether this is actually going in our town or in Neptune Township, which is right next door. And the fact that I can't get clarity from anybody at BOEM or DEP or anyone else for that matter as to which town this is going in is pretty ridiculous. The fact that we don't even have any kind of information, and the fact that we can't even get the correct town name if it's not going into Neptune City is even scary in itself. So I'd like to know which interested stakeholders have been, ignored during this process. And actually, probably even just as equally as important is which stakeholders have been talked to. Because I think that'd be very important to know who's actually being talked to about this. So that's my spiel. I thank you very much for doing this and for taking the time.
Thank you for your comments. The next 5 speakers, Carl Vanderwormen, Liz Trenston, Mike Dean, Jim Wolf, and Leslie Mangold. If you're on and you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. Carl Vanderwormen should receive that notice to unmute now.
This is Carl Van Warmerdam. I'm with Deep Sea Defenders. We are seeking to put a ban on deep sea mining in the international waters, in all waters, and which coincides with the building of a massive amounts of wind turbines, which will require the metals, because there's not enough mined metals on land. So these projects, you call them renewable, but they are not. They are rebuildable. 30 years down the road, they will have to be rebuilt again, and the mining and the minerals and the manufacturing will have to restart all over again. So we're kicking the problem down the road. And these are, they are not, their purpose and need has all been mandated. It's not that they will work, because BOEM itself knows that they will not work to alleviate climate change. They will in fact exacerbate it. So that's the number one. So their function is pretty much useless, except to damage the environment. In the planning, you've eliminated shipping lanes. So no wind turbines in the shipping lanes. So you're going to put them in where the whales are, because the whales won't be going in shipping lanes. But once you start putting these turbines in, where will the whales have to go? Well, they'll have to go into the shipping lanes. And then they get a ship strike and a kill. And that's what's going on right now. And you say, oh, well, wind turbines are not killing the whales. No, but the activity caused the whales to go into the shipping lanes. So it's not a direct link, which you can say, oh yeah, that's not a direct link. But what caused them to go into those, to get a ship strike, death by a ship strike? And so these are endangered species, the North Atlantic right whale. So how is it that you can say that that's okay, that you can go ahead and kill a species, a magnificent species, I may say an iconic So the environment will be destroyed by these, and it seems like that's okay with the big environmental or ENGOs. They now love to go mining and destroying the planet to save it. Another thing that isn't included in the wind turbines is because it's a non-dispatchable energy source, it requires batteries. So I see no reckoning in your in the COP for the battery storage, because this is intermittent energy. So that's not placed in the figures there. Where is all this battery storage going to go? It's not base load. So we're going to have all this energy flowing in, and it's not on demand. It's when the energy blows, but when it stops, people want their energy. So that's how our energy system is based. So these now you're putting the cart before the horse, and it's doomed to failure. So these projects would not survive if they weren't mandated, because they're economically unfeasible, and they'll destroy the fishing jobs and the tourist industry, and permanently damage the commons, which is our East Coast waters, which is a national park. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Leslie Mangold. Leslie should have that note to unmute.
Yes, hi, how are you? Thank you for hosting this. I'm getting a lot from the comments. I am also opposed to offshore wind. I've made multiple comments on different applications. And I'm opposed to it for many reasons. And I guess the first and foremost is I cherish the beauty of the ocean and the marine life. And to me, and as probably, I couldn't even guess the amount of people, how devastating it is to see whales and dolphins lying dead on our beaches. And this is unprecedented. I grew up here. I've been here my entire life. I've never seen this. And these creatures are mammals, and they're like us. They think, they feel, they mourn, they communicate, and they're suffering due to human activities. Over 230,000 incidental harassment authorizations have been issued, also known as TAKED, by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for marine mammals in relation to offshore wind construction activities. So the first thing that is sort of, I'm drawing a blank on the word, but contradictory, is if the offshore wind activities are not affecting them, why issue takes? Why has NOAA authorized this? Earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that you have done extensive research on the impact these wind turbines will have in the ocean. And the slide was up briefly, but you covered a number of areas, from EMFs to navigation to impact on marine life, fishing, etc. And it says you've done a lot of research, but what I'm not really clear on is how the research was conducted. These wind turbines are not in the ocean now. I mean, there's pre-construction and some construction activities, but there's not been a pilot project to base this research on. So, you know, a long time ago, I was in school, and my understanding of how research works, I guess, in scientific research, is to conduct research and make observations, collect data, and make predictions. But your research and your observations and collection of data is not based on anything other than perhaps Europe. I really am very, very confused and do not understand the position taken by a lot of environmental organizations who feel that this is good. That to me is a huge contradiction. How is industrializing the ocean going to save the planet or save us or reduce the climate change? And I'm asking, like pleading with BOEM and NOAA, in our state, Governor Murphy, legislators who are for it, and environmental organizations, like, why do you not hear what those of us who are against it and concerned about it, not hearing us? The gentleman from Neptune mentioned, he said our voices have been silenced, and that's absolutely right. Murphy doing away with home rule. You can't, a town can't say, no, we don't want this here. We don't want these cables coming in. I don't want to go on and ramble, but I pleading with you and please look at, this is the ocean. And if you really believe that this is so good for the environment, why aren't they being put on land? Is it out of sight, out of mind kind of thing? I mean, personally, I don't think they're good across the board. But in closing, I am emphatically opposed to any wind turbines in the ocean, high voltage cables, substations, et cetera, et cetera. I thank you for the time. And again, I plead with you to please hear us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. We're going to take just a brief pause here while we allow for a change in our closed captioner. I did want to note, Liz Trustin, if you are on and you wish to make a comment, I'm giving one last call. Feel free to raise your hand now. Great. Thank you so much for your patience, everyone, with that. Liz Trustin, go ahead and you should be able to come off mute now to make your comment.
Thank you very much. My name is Liz Trustin. I'm actually from Long Beach, New York, and we have wind turbines that are attempting to come along our shore as well. And first, I'd like to say thank you for providing this information. And is there a way for someone that is just becoming aware of the wind turbines that are coming to the ocean where they can find a simple explanation of exactly what is happening? Because we are, as consumers of electricity, getting different views from our governors, our federal representatives, and also the local groups that come up with which some, in my humble opinion, are a little bit of fear mongering, and people don't know who to believe anymore. And if this is going to be moving forward, how are we supposed to trust BOEM or to trust the local organizations when when each of the bodies seem to be battling each other? Where does the person in the middle, where do they find that information? And that's all I have to say. And again, thank you so much for having this forum this evening.
Thank you for your comment. The next 5 speakers, Danielle Bender, Ann Rosen, Jane Fasulo, Colleen Spear, and Lisa Bonato. If any of you are on and still wish to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Lisa, you should have received a notice to unmute. I can't hear you speaking just yet, but it looks like from my side you're unmuted. You might have a mute on your end as well.
Hi. Yes, my name is Lisa Bonanno. I'm listening to this. I did submit a question. One of my concerns about us continuing to depend on fossil fuel, I have many concerns about it. One is obviously the air quality. It does contribute to asthma. And just in general, it definitely respiratory illnesses. I'm a nurse. I deal a lot with people with COPD, with people with asthma, adults and children, and people with a lot of respiratory problems. And this is perpetuating. The more cars we drive, the worse that gets. So there's a lot of public health issues involved with maintaining our dependence on fossil fuels, including the effect on the environment. We do end up having more storms and more flooding. So what happens is people's homes and properties are dealing with mold, and that also impacts asthma and other mold-related illnesses. And I don't think that we think about that very much, but we should be, because the people that can afford to live in cleaner environments do, and the ones that don't, the people that are on Medicaid, end up costing the state a lot of money and just being sicker. And, we need to consider all of this as we look at our fuel sources. Also, I talk to a lot of teenagers. I work in psych sometimes, and the teenagers and young adults are very demoralized by our inaction on our fossil fuel dependence. They're concerned about the climate change that they see. And they talk about not having a bright future. They talk about why even have children if we're going to, suffer from this, all the wildfires and everything else. So that's what fossil fuels are indirectly doing, just by the climate change, and also the destabilization politically, because we have to get involved in whatever happens in the Middle East and also in Russia, because they are oil exporters and we use so much oil. So yes, we have our own, and there are impacts to drilling that we can't get away from. There's impacts to our environment and also people's health. As it moves, we move pipelines on land and underneath, and also the oil drilling, the rigs and everything. We have explosions, we have spills, not just out on the waters, but just with oil dripping from cars and going into the sea. That is an environmental impact of fossil fuels, and we're not talking about that enough. So between being basically held hostage to whatever's happening in other countries, because all the oil gets put on one market. It's not like we can just only use American oil. Everything goes in one pool, and then a conglomerate sets the pricing. It's not like we can just use our own. It just doesn't work that way. But anyway, those are some concerns I have about not moving forward with wind. And I've noticed that teenagers actually, some of the teenagers I see really appreciate the wind turbines that are near us in Atlantic City, because to them it's a visual representation of progress and of hope. And I don't think people think about that. So I'm very much, and I also appreciate, as I listen to all these presentations, our government is working for us, and also they're doing the research, and they're also giving us time to speak. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that's going on behind the scenes. So I really, let me make sure I'm looking at my notes. I think that's my biggest issue. Oh, warming oceans also from fossil fuels is another concern. We may, there's no perfect solutions to this. Nothing is going to be perfect. But I think this is in the long, there's going to be some disturbance when we first set it up and some costs when we first set it up. But provided we can keep the turbines themselves secure and maintained, I think it's really going to improve the quality of life here at the shore. There aren't going to be the ocean views we think we're going to have, and the ones that we have now, if we continue on a path of not looking towards renewable energy in the future, including wind energy. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Jane Fasulo.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to have followed Ann Rosen, the previous speaker. I have to say I'm fully in support of what she has said on every single point. I live on Long Island. We have been dealing with offshore views of shipping vessels constantly going by. They're not 10 or 12 or 16 miles off the edge of our shores. They're within feet, in some cases, of our shores. We have had to deal with oil spills. We have had to deal with accidents of all sort, from loading and unloading the fuel. An alternative that BOEM has to consider is offshore drilling. We have definitely, all of us in the United States, heard of the damages that have been done by offshore drilling to the water, especially when there is a leak. But even when there is not, there is always danger from leakage from the ships and the loading and unloading of the fuel onto them. I've also done a significant amount of investigation into fracking, which is a way of getting the natural gas. It is not a clean situation. People think of gas as clean, and maybe it is, but those places from which the sources come are emitting methane, the number one greenhouse gas increase that we have. And just today, there have been major reports in our news about the offshore coral bleaching throughout our seas. Coral supports so many life forms, incredibly high numbers of life forms that we ourselves need for food. This is not being taken into consideration when we say we don't want offshore wind. Trust me, I don't want it, but I also don't want fires burning fossil fuel oils. I don't want the pollution that comes from fossil fuel oils. I don't want to have to constantly worry about whether my house is going to explode because of a gas leak. In fact, I dealt with a gas leak in the service to our block for 15, 20 years before finally something was done because of a health situation. While I don't like the idea of turbines, to answer those about putting it on land, one of the reasons it's going off the shores is because the wind is more consistent and more reliable. There'd be less need for battery backup when you have a consistent flow of energy, as opposed to on land where winds are very easily high and low and change and fluctuate in time. But just in overall, I don't understand. When I have a choice of which of the bad things to choose, I will choose the least bad. To me, offshore wind is one of the least bad that we have. Even simple damming of our waterways implies that our androgynous fish that need to get upstream to have new offspring, they can't get upstream. Any form of energy that we have ever been able to create has had its negatives. I encourage everyone to please reconsider what the negatives are of all of the forms that we need for energy. Unless you don't want to have any energy, fine. But I don't think any of us can live without it in this day and age. Please take a look at your energy sources and consider which is in fact the best choice. That's all I have to say. Thank you. I have to move to another meeting.
Thank you. The next commenters are Alan McGreeny, Chris Grindrod, Mark Eckhoff, Thomas Figliata, and Bob Stern. If any of you are on and wish to make a comment, please raise your hand now. Alan McGreeny, I see that your hand was raised. You should get that note to unmute.
Thank you. It's actually Let McGreeny. I'm Alan McGreeny's wife. We live in Ship Bottom on Long Beach Island, New Jersey. My thoughts are this. We have repeatedly asked BOEM and others to have a public hearing here on Long Beach Island due to the fact that the tallest turbines in the world at 1,100 feet, that is twice the size of the Washington Monument, as well as the closest turbines in the world at 8.4 miles, right off the shore of Long Beach Island. We have asked in numerous places to have a public hearing. Seems that the public hearings, which were not hearings at all, were held in Asbury Park and 2 in New York City. These turbines are within the view of our beautiful ocean off of Long Beach Island. Has no one thought of this? Does no one care? tourism of the Jersey Shore is probably the number one amount of money that comes into the state of New Jersey. What is to stop people to say, never mind, I'll go to Delaware, I'll go to Maryland. Why do I need to come to New Jersey and see those ugly turbines at 1,100 square feet high right off our shore? And at night have red blinking lights all night long. Our sunrises here are stunning. People come to the Jersey Shore. I have been coming to the Jersey Shore all of my 70 years. It is time to let the people that are impacted the most, 8.4 miles from our shoreline, visible over 40 miles. That's BOEM. That's what they said. You could see them 40 miles away. Let's have a public hearing here on LBI. Most impacted by Atlantic Shores North. Not only that, Atlantic Shores North, after impacting our island, that is 18 miles long, will send that energy to New York, not New Jersey. It's not for us, it's to New York. It's time to hold a public hearing here on Long Beach Island. We have plenty of venues that will hold huge numbers of people to be able to voice their thoughts, pro or con. But it is up to you, BOEM, to allow those people most impacted by this to voice their opinions, their concerns. Do not industrialize our ocean. It is for all to enjoy. Find another way. There has to be a better way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next commenters are Eliza Light, Alan Zakin, Richard Isaac, Deneen Austin, and Denise.
One motion, I wouldn't be as a motion.
If any of you are on and still wish to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Richard Isaac, you should receive that note to come off mute now.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening on this critically important issue. I'm Richard Isaac, an individual with a residence in Asbury Park. And while I am active in Sierra Club, tonight I am speaking just for myself. Again, speaking for myself, I fully support offshore wind because it is very much needed to address climate change by playing a vital role in helping us transition away from fossil fuels. In August of 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a scientific body convened by the United Nations, released a major report concluding that the world cannot avoid some of the devastating impacts of climate change, but that there is still a narrow window to keep the devastation from getting even worse. In fact, the report shows that climate change is accelerating. There's already so much carbon dioxide in the air that even if we stop carbon emissions today, the climate will continue to get warmer, with resulting ocean acidification, warming of the ocean, and more intense weather. Ocean acidification is particularly important to address because as ocean acidification increases, makes it increasingly challenging for marine organisms to build and maintain their shells and skeletons. Clearly, we need to act to address climate change as quickly as possible. While increasing both energy efficiency and the use of solar power are vitally important in addressing climate change, the fact is that large offshore wind projects can create substantial amounts of electricity and must be included as well. Each proposed offshore wind project will generate approximately the same amount of electricity currently created by each of New Jersey's existing fossil fuel power plants, will be able to make a substantial contribution in helping us transition away from fossil fuel energy and to help New Jersey successfully fulfill its energy master plan and achieve 100% clean energy by 2035. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker will be Deneen Austin.
Hi, my name is Deneen Austin. I've been coming to LBI for over 20 years, and I've owned a house there for over 10 years, and it's always been a very special place. I think it's just so sad that any turbine projects are still being considered at all. It is so upsetting on so many fronts. I don't think the proponents of this project have fully considered all of the adverse impacts that include the reduction of wind, red blinking lights, the effect on humans, pets, and marine life, noise pollution, and the effect on the local economy and the quality of life. When we tell our friends about this project that aren't from the area, that don't know about it, they're absolutely flabbergasted and say, why would anybody do this? The cons of this project are so much worse than the benefits of the turbines, especially considering the lack of testing. I don't understand why the government wants to install the world's largest turbines and turbine field off the coast of one of New Jersey's best beaches. Please cancel this project. At the very least, you have to push them out 30 to 40 miles. There has to be a better way. We won't give up without a fight. Thank you for letting us talk. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is going to be Bob Stern.
Oh, Bob Stern's next. Oh, he's the leader.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, okay, thanks. I'm heading the organization Save Long Beach Island Incorporated. We're a nonpartisan group. We do professional work. We try to present options that are better than what we have today. In the interest of time, I can't go through all the adverse impacts of this project, but I'd like to focus, as you've requested, on the EIS and the scope of this EIS. We're extremely concerned with the decision process that the BOEM has been going through to select areas and projects. And to understand that, for people who aren't familiar with impact statements, let me explain what an impact statement is supposed to do, because it's really not designed to just present the impacts of the agency proposal. It's designed to track the agency's decision process and inject environmental factors into that. And unfortunately, that has not occurred in this process. We heard BOEM representatives talk about all the decisions they've made, winnowing down areas, projects, and so on. That should have been done with EIS review, and more importantly, it should have been done with public input. That was not done. The only way to resurrect and improve and correct that at this point would be for this EIS to basically reconsider a lot of those decisions, and we will be commenting to you extensively to do that. The other thing that's lacking in this EIS and prior EISs is a thing called full disclosure of impacts. That's a legal requirement. We cited in our past comments that for all their length, these EISs do not disclose the most significant impacts, adverse impacts of these projects. I can't go through them all, but I'll cite some examples. You do not consider the electric rate increases that occur from these projects. We have estimated you're talking about impacts on the order of 30% to electric bills. And obviously that has a significant impact on the state's economy, jobs, and so on that needs to be considered. You haven't considered the issue of the operation of the turbines in terms of the rotation of the blades. It's virtually impossible to look at that. So you end up with a shore-going experience where people come to the shore and cannot look at the seascape. It seems to me that that would be an unacceptable impact that would require rejection of the project. Underwater noise to marine mammals, some of the commenters have concerns about that. BOEM has ignored evidence we've provided on the link of the whale deaths to the vessel surveys. You have underestimated the impacts of pile driving. We'll be commenting on that. And most importantly, you've ignored the issue of operational turbine noise, which has a significant impact once the turbines are operating on marine mammal migration. You need to stop pretending that a large turbine noise is the same as a small and address the issue seriously. Finally, on decommissioning, I think you'd have to be honest with the public. The rules do not require removal of these projects after their useful life. They only require that they be put out of service. It does not appear feasible to remove them. So once they're out there, I think they will be out there forever. You need to address this honestly in the EIS. So just to conclude, I think there needs to be a complete restructuring of your process, of the EIS, of its content, of its length, of its alternatives. I don't expect you're going to do that. And so there's really only one decision left to be made here. And it's not by BOEM, it's not by me, because my wife doesn't let me make the big decisions. It is by the people on this call as to whether you're going to stand up and you're going to fight this. And if you are, I encourage you to go to our website, savelbi.org, and donate your energy and your time and your money, or both, because this has to be corrected. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope this is taken very seriously by all.
Thank you for your comments. Our next commenters will be Pauline Thomas, Greg Ferretti, John Jay, Robert Koniger, and Byron Perry. If you're on the line and you wish to make a comment still, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to read the names of the next 5 commenters: John Deichman, Cindy Moore, Beth Pomper, Christy Duffy, and Dennis DeForest. For any of you that are on and would like to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. John Deichman, you should receive that notice to come off mute.
Am I ready to speak?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you. I adamantly oppose the Atlantic Shores developments, which are only 8 miles from our beautiful beaches, closer by far than any other large projects being considered elsewhere in the United States and perhaps in the entire world. The Atlantic Shores projects were miscited from the beginning, and even though the federal and state powers that be now recognize their mistake, they are not willing to consider a course correction for political reasons. Rather, they proceed at breakneck speed on projects that make no economic or environmental sense. And we New Jersey homeowners, businesses, and ratepayers will be paying the heavy environmental and economic price for generations to come. If BOEM really wanted to hear the public, you would hold live hearings on Long Beach Island and Seagirt, where the most significant impacts will be felt. But that's no surprise. BOEM has a conflict of interest. You're both the promoter and regulator of these projects. You state that your purpose is to meet the offshore goals set by the president's and the governor's executive orders. But if that is your goal, how can the public be assured that you're properly regulating the proposed developments? Would the Nuclear Regulatory Commission be credible if its goal were to license an aggressive number of new nuclear plants in an arbitrary time frame rather than on safety? Your process in defining the New Jersey wind areas was seriously flawed and in violation of NEPA. No EIS was done, no alternative locations were considered, just a narrowly defined geographic sector. The result? Leases that are much closer to the New Jersey shore than in any other state. In fact, New York rejected proposals off the Hamptons and within 15 miles of Long Island. Your close-in New Jersey siting means more major impacts on the beach environment, the shore communities, and the tourist economy that could easily be avoided. New Jersey has a wide continental shelf with better sites available. And your New Jersey wind area crosses the migration path of the seriously endangered North Atlantic right whale. Does any of that make sense? To add insult to injury, The Atlantic Shores North project, located 4 miles from New Jersey and more than 60 miles from New York, is proposing to send its power to either New York or New Jersey, or both, to where it can extract the highest subsidies. So New Jersey suffers the immediate and long-term environmental insults, which New York avoids, but New York gets to bid on the power. A second stated purpose for these projects is that they contribute to reducing climate change, global warming, and resulting sea level rise. But BOEM's own environmental impact statements acknowledge that the entire U.S. offshore wind program will not measurably impact those concerns. In fact, since the impact is so small, BOEM refuses to include the specific impact number in its EISs. Other purported benefits include economic contributions to the local economy and thousands of new jobs. Both are false premises. An example, the Atlantic Shores 1 project was said to deliver almost $2 billion in economic benefits and to create tens of thousands of job years. But those assertions were grossly misleading. They were not freebies, but must be paid for by the ratepayers and taxpayers. Nor did those numbers include the reduced revenue and job losses to the tourism industry, the fishing and shore communities, and to the broader New Jersey economy due to inflated electricity costs. A study by Whitestrand Consulting pegs the Atlantic Shores 1 project rate subsidy at $3.6 billion. That rate subsidy alone exceeds the claimed economic benefits. To that rate subsidy, Whitestrand adds costs for reductions in tourism and for inflated cost of electricity. It then pegs the total net cost to New Jersey, that's cost in excess of benefits, at $15 billion. At that level, the cost to the state for each claimed job would be $368,000. Worse yet, taking into account the expected lost jobs in tourism and in the general economy due to inflated electricity costs, there may actually be a net loss of almost 3,000 full-time jobs per year. Like the economic claims, the job claims are very expensive. And that's for the old pricing. If Atlantic Shores 1 is renegotiated, which the BPU is poised to do this fall, the rate subsidies likely balloon to increase from $3.6 to $10 billion, and the total net cost from $15 to $27 billion, and the cost per year to $675,000. And that's just one project. My focus was on the
We've hit that 5-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and just suggest if you have additional comments you want to make, you could include those through regulations.gov. Thank you. Pauline Thomas will be our next speaker. You should receive that notice to come off of mute.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. I'm Pauline Thomas. I'm a pediatrician and a public health educator. I'm speaking in favor of offshore wind, renewable clean energy. Offshore wind has health benefits. Wind energy is clean energy. It doesn't pollute the air like coal, gas, oil, and other fossil fuels. Offshore wind saves lives. The sooner we switch to offshore wind energy, the better our chances of mitigating the worst impacts of climate change. Climate and health are interconnected. New Jersey's communities, particularly low-income, underserved areas, are at risk of severe public health effects of climate change. In New Jersey, more than 600,000 adults and 167,000 children have asthma. Blacks, Hispanics, and urban residents are more likely to be affected with asthma symptoms, which are aggravated by pollution. Additional health impacts include temperature-related death and illness and flooding, leading to seepage of contaminants into waterways. All of these concerns are intertwined with the potential mental health impacts on coastal populations. Fatal weather events, including Hurricane Sandy and Tropical Storm Ida, underscore the devastating and extreme way climate change can harm public health. Clean renewable energy, including offshore wind-generated electricity, is also essential for wildlife preservation. Fossil fuel generation and warming oceans hurt our fishing industry. Global wind farm projects demonstrate minimal impacts to fishing from offshore wind energy development. The first U.S. offshore wind farm off Block Island, Rhode Island, highlights how recreational and commercial fishing and flourish near wind turbines. Climate change is the greatest existing threat to wildlife, resulting in 1 million animal and plant species threatened with extinction due to a rapidly changing environment. Since 1970, the US and Canada have lost 3 billion birds due to climate change, according to a 2019 study published in Science. Offshore wind power can be developed in a manner that avoids, minimizes, and mitigates impacts to wildlife and habitats each and every step of the way. For example, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, monitors offshore whale deaths. They have determined that vessel strikes and entanglement in fishing gear are the greatest human threats to large whales. Climate change is a threat to whale habitat and food sources, as it is to us. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Our next set of commenters are Melissa Danielson, Kathleen Harper, Teresa Boyle-Vellucci, Chris Placetta, and Aviva Gans. If any of you are on and wish to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Great, our first commenter will be Chris Placetta. You should receive that notice to unmute now.
Okay, it's Placitel, but that's okay.
Thank you.
So I'm a little hesitant to speak, frankly, because I don't really want to legitimize what appears to be a result-driven proceeding. Is BOEM really willing to change course in the face of substantial evidence of harm to the environment, natural resources, and the economy? I was a little shocked to find out that Atlantic Shores only paid $1 million for both leases together. And I listened to Dr. Pauline, and it was concerning to me that apparently she had never read the environmental impact statements.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a moment, please.
Yeah.
Any comments that are about another commenter are not in line with these proceedings.
Okay, I'll keep moving.
Thank you.
That the Atlantic Shores South environmental impact statement, which is further out than the North one, which was here for today, says and admits by BOEM there'll be unavoidable risk of mammal mortality, avian mortality, loss of jobs, harms to the fishing industry, irreversible harm to environmental justice communities, adverse health consequences for New Jersey residents, pollution, including chemical spills, beach closures, the visual integrity of historic resources destroyed, irreversible impact on cultural resources, and an irreversible impact on tourism. Those are not my words, those are BOEM's words. Hurricanes and nor'easters. BPU just filed a public document saying that they have no scientific basis to support the viability of 1,000-foot wind turbines in the face of hurricanes and nor'easters. What are we doing here? That's insanity. If you look at the construction and operations report for Atlantic Shores North, they say there will be major impacts on Barnegat Light, Little Egg Harbor, Brigantine, Stafford Township, Berkeley, Tuckerton, Little Egg Harbor, Galloway, Atlantic City, Ship Bottom, Long Beach Island, and they pick a lot on Beach Haven. What is very misleading of the simulations that have been submitted by Atlantic Shores for both North and South is they never show the combined effect. They show one and the other, and they're devastating, but they don't overlay one on top of the other, which is a major, major problem in the overall submission. And here we are. To add insult to industry, we're going to send the power north. It's just beyond comprehension. So in conclusion, is this really the legacy that this administration wants? Do the facts matter, or are we just here for an agenda-driven hearing so somebody can put in a statement down the line that a hearing was heard and the public was heard? It doesn't feel like up to this point the public is being heard. I guess we'll find out. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter will be Teresa Boyle-Vellucci. As a reminder, if folks could please not raise your hand until your name is called, and that will allow us to make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak. Thank you, Teresa.
Okay, hi, can you hear me okay? And actually, that's a good sunset in our LBI. So for those who are not in LBI, you all can see a little bit of our beautiful community. I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am a homeowner in LBI. There's been a lot of mention in the presentation of involving stakeholders in this process. This project, however, is to be located directly off the shores of Long Beach Island. Yet, as has been mentioned by some others, none of the 3 BOEM public meetings have been held in Long Beach Island. Instead, they have been located 50 miles north of Long Beach Island, Asbury Park, and then over 100 miles away in New York. That, to me, speaks volumes as to the BOEM's true commitment to engagement with the community that would be directly impacted. The proposed wind farms are as close as 9 miles from our shores. There are no wind farms located or being proposed to be located so close to a community shoreline in the world. Let me repeat that, in the world. This is unprecedented and unacceptable. While I appreciate the concern for climate change, the proposal as is not the way to go. And I'm asking the BOEM to consider an alternative of moving out the wind farm beyond 35 miles or in such a way so that it does not impact our shore of community or a community of others who live and work on the shores of New Jersey. The detrimental and adverse impact of this project on marine life has been made clear just this week. A humpback whale was found dead in Brant Beach. Also, our dolphin population has been extraordinarily sparse these past 2 years in particular. Who is monitoring the dolphin population? I do not believe there is any question that marine life mammals communicate by sonar, so you can make that connection. I have lived and been in the community and been connected to the community of LBI for over 30 years. I've never seen the number of mammals found dead on our shores in a year ever. I have never seen such an absence of our beloved dolphins. I would echo one of the other speakers today that the BOEM and the NJDEP are supposed to protect our environment. I do not feel you're doing that. Another consideration is mental health. There is a lot of lip service given to mental health crisis in our nation and the need to address the same. People often say that when driving onto LBI, folks feel a sense of relief, and that applies to our adult and adolescent populations. And our adolescent population, no question, is struggling. Long Beach Island is a place for vacationing and disconnecting from the stresses of life. These wind farms will ruin our community and the comfort it gives to those who come to LBI. Before making a few closing remarks, I have some questions. What evaluation has been done regarding the impact of the wind farms on the waters of our shores for surfing, swimming, other recreation? Will there be an increase in rip currents, creating an adverse impact on the safety of our shoreline as well? The wind farm is being pushed upon our community unfairly. I feel that our New Jersey and federal government is selling out our community. I would also add that to some of the folks who have made some comments about alternative energies, come to LBI and you will see that many homes and businesses in LBI are using solar power. These wind farms will not be specks on the LBI shore. The BOEM makes this clear as reflected even in the final slides of its presentation today. Our community is and has always been good stewards of our beautiful ocean community on Long Beach Island. Our shore, our wetlands, our Atlantic ocean marine life, and the Bay Area that surrounds our community. I encourage those who have never been to LBI, come and visit us, and you will see what we're all talking about and feel so passionate about on this call today. We need the US government, the BOEM, Governor Murphy, and our legislators, as well as the New Jersey DEP and the BPU, to be responsible stewards of our ocean, rather than selling out our ocean, our sea life, and our community. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter is going to be Kathleen Harper. You should be receiving that notice to come off of mute now.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Harper. I'm consider myself a whale warrior or wind warrior. I'm very much against wind turbines going into our ocean. And I want to ask BOEM right now, to be honest, to the environmental groups that are standing up to speak and to the public, about the use of fossil fuels. It's made out that we are going to go away from fossil fuels by using wind turbines. And let's get to the facts. First of all, the most ironic part about all of this is that the materials that are being made for wind turbines are being made in the world's worst polluting country, and that is in China. And China is actually putting in more coal-fired energy plants so they can create more or create and manufacture more wind turbine and solar materials, and that they're using materials that come from mining, strip mining in many poor countries, and they're using children labor. Also, when they transport these turbine parts, they're extremely large, since we're getting the largest amounts of the largest types of turbines ever going into the ocean. It takes a lot of diesel boats or ships coming from China to America to transport all these materials, and they can't transport a lot because all the materials are extremely large. 1,000-foot poles. The wind turbine blades are the size of a football field. So it takes more shipments of materials, and that means more use of diesel fuel. Also, let's let the people know what is going inside each turbine. So with my little quick list here, come here. First of all, there's going to be 187 gallons of grease. There's going to be 40 gallons of hydraulic oil. There's going to be 106 gallons of gear oil. There's going to be 1,585 gallons of the electric fluid. There's going to be 793 gallons of diesel fuel. There's going to be 243 pounds of sulfur hexafluoride. There's going to be 357 gallons of propylene glycol, and there's going to be 48 gallons of ethylene glycine. So these things are not clean, they're not green, and they're ended up in our ocean. And it has been proven that they leak. You will see many videos if you go online of the turbines leaking oil onto the land. So this is going to end up in our ocean, and it's going to destroy our ocean. Also, another fact, it takes at least 3 trips from a boat to go out to install just 3 turbines. And I actually think it's a little more when you start breaking it apart a lot. Another thing that they have found in European countries, they use diesel fuel to defrost the wind turbines, because when the blades freeze up, they can't run. Another thing people keep saying is consistent energy. Nuclear, oil, gas is consistent energy. Turbines are not consistent energy. They need to have a certain amount of wind. If it's too small, they can't run. If it's too much, they turn them off. We just saw over in Europe that a whole bunch of turbines were destroyed in the 85-mile-an-hour winds. So what is it going to do in our ocean when we get a nor'easter or hurricane? Please stop lying to the public environmental groups saying that we are getting away from fossil fuel when fossil fuel is all over this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter is Aviva Gans. You should have that notice to come off of mute now.
Yes, thank you. My name is Aviva Gans, A-V-I-V-A-G-A-N-S. I'm a pediatric physical therapist, and I appreciate the work that has been done in studying this and is going into creating the wind farm. I also just want to say that I do appreciate the comments of the other participants on either side. I've learned things from you, and nevertheless, I'm going to voice my support for construction of the wind farm. The construction of the wind farm represents a move away from fossil fuel generating energy. Burning fossil fuels has been shown to have wide-ranging detrimental effects on human health. A study from 2023, but from the British Medical Journal, estimates that in 2019, worldwide, 8.34 million deaths were caused by exposure to air pollution. There is evidence that toxins created while burning fossil fuels trigger or exacerbate respiratory, cardiovascular, neurodegenerative, and autoimmune disease. Risk for pregnancy and reproductive disorders can also be increased by fossil fuel emissions. Examples of illnesses related to fossil fuel toxins range from aggravation of asthma to multiple forms of cancer. One condition that highlights the negative effects of power sourced from fossil fuels is preterm birth. From 2001 to 2011, California closed 8 fossil fuel burning plants. Researchers from the University of California, Berkeley, decided to study the effects of plant closures on premature births. They compared pregnancies where the mother had 1 year of exposure prior to the closing of the plant to those where the mother had 1 year without exposure. And the study found that for births occurring within a 5-kilometer range of the plant, the percentage of preterm births decreased from 7% of the total births to 5.1%. There were also significant reductions within the 5 to 10-kilometer range. There were no changes in the preterm birth numbers in communities where plants were not closed. There are few, if any, medical interventions for reducing preterm births that are as effective as closure of power plants. This is only one example of the benefits of moving towards alternative energy. Keep in mind that all these medical conditions not only cause human suffering, but also result in increased stress on healthcare systems, entail significant financial costs, have the potential of increasing insurance premiums, and result in lost time from work and school. Preterm births increase the risk of child developmental delays. These don't just stress healthcare, but also can result in costly educational expenses. The Atlantic Shore's North Wind Farm can help us move. It's not completely the answer, but it will help us move away from fossil fuel toxic emissions. While supplying power, the wind farm has the potential of benefiting the health and well-being of New Jersey residents and decreasing costs associated with disability or poor health. I do recognize that there are environmental impacts of creating, of implementing the, offshore wind. And I am disappointed that I learned tonight that there's only 8 miles from the shore, and I hope that that can be considered and put further away. I thank you for your attention and for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you for your comment. I'm going to read the names of our next commenters. They include James Thompson, Leslie Long, John DePatolo, John Nichols, and Michelle Peterson. If you are on and you still wish to make a comment, I would ask that you please raise your hand. I see we have a couple of James Thompsons on, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute one at a time. So I have my first one ready. You should have received that pop-up box to unmute. Great, you're unmuted from our side. Looks like you may have re-hit mute again. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one and we'll come back to you then.
Oh, hello. My apologies. I don't know how my name got to be James Thompson again, but my name is Sharonda Allen, and I wanted to just share a few comments about my support for the offshore wind projects here in New Jersey. I'm also a standing steering committee member for NJPEAK, which is the New Jersey Progressive Equitable Energy Coalition. So, as one of the other commenters stated, offshore wind is a better energy option when it comes to particulate matter and pollution and emissions so that communities have better health outcomes. But also, we want to ensure that we are creating a boost in the economy. Offshore wind will create lots of jobs, but also it will help to mitigate climate change. Some folks don't know or understand how important it is to avoid fossil fuels and some of the dangers for nuclear power. I know someone mentioned that earlier. It's not really a good option. So when we actually learn about offshore wind and we dig deeper into it, we understand that there may be some impacts on the animals, but there are measures in place. There's a lot of science in place that ensures that the whales and other animals are not too damaged when it comes to their echolocation abilities and their communication, because there are things called bubble curtains that are used in order to block out the sound of the foundation and the piling drivings that are occurring on the continental shelf. So we have to ensure that folks are not just on here because they don't want their view to be blocked at the beach, or maybe they are part of some coalition because it sounds like some of the same talking points. We have to ensure that science is on the table here, and the fact that geographically on the East Coast with our continental shelf, we have such an advantage to bring this green energy resource to fruition. So my comments are all in favor of offshore wind, and I caution everyone, just as another commenter stated earlier, we have to be careful about the detractors and those who are creating propaganda to go against offshore wind for reasons that may not be as as ethical or as honest as they should be. So please continue to share information about bubble curtains that help to protect the animals so that people don't think that these offshore wind foundation construction sites are going to be so damaging. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your comment. Our next commenter will be James Thompson. You should be receiving a note to come off of mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. My name is James Thompson. I'm the campaigns director for the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. I want to notate that I'm a lifelong resident of South Jersey. I'd like to start by acknowledging all of the steps that BOEM has taken to make this process as transparent as possible and to solicit community input at every turn. I also want to make sure that this process is including diverse stakeholders, as in all of the affected counties, not just along the shore, but also statewide, because this is a statewide concern and issue. Offshore wind will be developed responsibly, and it's something that New Jersey LCV cares deeply about. I'd also like to add that New Jersey LCV actively participates in several coalitions that span diverse interests, unified by a commitment to protecting the natural world. We also are a founding member of the New Jersey Windworks Coalition, which is a growing coalition of environmental organizations, labor unions, faith-based organizations, and community-based organizations throughout the state of New Jersey. Today, I'm here to emphasize the support for the Atlantic Shores North project and the opportunities it would provide for cleaner air, positive impacts to our public health, and the positive impact to our statewide economy, and good-paying, family-sustaining union jobs. Any concerns raised by environmental organizations dedicated to addressing climate change are aimed at enhancing the overall quality of this crucial initiative for all of the projects. Notably, our Offshore Wind Coalition, New Jersey Windworks, like I mentioned before, is dedicated to ensuring the responsible and sustainably development of offshore wind here in the state of New Jersey. Offshore wind is a driving opportunity for our state. The creation of thousands of well-paying union jobs has the opportunity to transform our local businesses, strengthen our unions, contribute significantly to the overall economic growth of New Jersey, Key point, New Jersey is preparing and combating climate change. Key point, combating climate change. Okay, New Jersey is also preparing to create a highly skilled workforce that will be poised and ready to take a leading role in developing clean offshore wind to millions of families in our region. The dedication and expertise of our workers, combined with their economic benefits and combating climate change, will provide opportunities for this growing and new industry, which makes a win-win scenario for our state. I urge swift action to ensure that the benefits are realized by New Jersey workers and communities as soon as possible, not just communities at the shore, but communities statewide. Offshore wind isn't just about clean energy, it's about making tangible commitments to job creation and combating climate change. The prospect of thousands of well-paying union jobs is not just a promise, it's a transformational opportunity for our local workforce and combating climate change, and a cornerstone of our economy and combating climate change. I'd also like to applaud BOEM for commitment to transparency and collaboration throughout this process. Engaging with local communities, stakeholders, and regulatory agencies will be crucial in addressing concerns, mitigating risks, and ensuring the responsible and sustainable development of offshore wind with the maximum benefit of all communities of our state. I'd also like to add that embracing renewable energy sources and clean energy like the Atlantic Shores North projects will not only take significant strides towards mitigating climate change, but also stimulate our local economic development, local job growth, combat climate change, public health, positive impacts, sustaining future generations to come. And I know that I'm running out of time, but there's just one thing that I want to say in closing. Okay. We live in a new era. We live in a new day. Offshore wind gives us the opportunity to rethink how we deliver the necessary energy and power that we need to deliver to our homes and businesses. So how we currently deliver energy with dirty fossil fuels is just simply not sustainable. The longer we wait, the longer we deliberate, the longer we hurt future generations. I yield my time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter is James Thompson. You should receive a notice to come off of mute.
Hi, my name is Reverend Ronald Tuff. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, yes. The name is Reverend Ronald Tuff. I'm with the Green Faith. I'm the New Jersey organizer. And I want to speak tonight. First, I want to commend Bob on the project that you're doing. But I want to speak on behalf of the low and moderate and minority community. We want to make sure that these so-called jobs, that they will be trained and that they will be, because most of them will be union jobs. And we want to make sure that the low and moderate minority community will be accepted into the union, not only accepted into the union, but will be trained for these jobs. We want to make sure that they will be, if they have to be requalified, recertified, or re-educated, we want to make sure that the project works with community development corporations that will go into the organized community and train and teach the low and moderate community to qualify for these jobs. We need a commitment that the unions will be brought to the table and that they will be a percentage that they have to hire from the local low and moderate and minority community. We want to make sure that these jobs, that when they come to the community, that they're gonna say, well, we didn't find anybody qualified. Yes, they're qualified, they'll be requalified. And we want to make sure that we work with this project in order to qualify the low and moderate people from the community to qualify for these jobs, and to make sure that they sit down with all the unions that are involved, and that they will be retrained, and they will be recertified, and that they will work with community development corporations to work with these people. I now yield my time. Make sure.
Thank you very much for your comment. I want to read the names of the next 5 commenters: Eric Nussbaum, Corrine Blagovich, Anthony Remicus, Danielle DeBooter, and Scott Aguilar. Our next speaker will, however, be John Diputato. You should be receiving that notice to come off of mute.
Hi, Pam, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm John Diputato. I've had a home on LBI in the historic district of Beach Haven for 25 years. You know, it's kind of ironic that when you live in an historic area, any building or renovations must conform to code in order to reserve and preserve the historic look and beauty of the town. Yet BOEM feels it's okay to place 1,000-foot turbines in the ocean less than 8 miles off the coast. To quote directly from Atlantic Shore's documents relative to Beach Haven, historic Beach Haven, turbines will dominate the view, and residences along the shoreline will have a consistent view of the ocean that is industrialized. That's outrageous. So is BOEM planning to turn this pristine island into the New Jersey Turnpike? In reading BOEM's mission statement, it says that you are to manage the development of offshore energy in an environmentally, economically, and responsible way. You claim to be a responsible steward and allow for inclusive and transparent engagement. But leasing this area, less than 8 miles off the coast, actually feels quite the opposite. This is irresponsible. This will be the closest and largest project to date in terms of size, extreme location to shore, and impact on the community. What parameters at BOEM tell you it's okay to lease an area less than 9 miles off a barrier island whose sole existence and economy is based on tourism? Why would you entertain a proposal for 1,000-foot turbines the size of Chrysler buildings with red blinking lights that will change the coast view forever? Did you know that in Europe, wind farms start at 44 miles off the coast, and none of them, or few of them, are 1,000 feet tall? This project as planned is in direct violation of your mission statement. Just because you've been given a hammer doesn't mean that every location up and down the coast of New Jersey is a nail. You'd better be smarter, more skillful, and more responsible. Have these size turbines actually been tested or have been proven to be in full operation for any length of time? And what type of acoustics will they produce both under and on top of the ocean? Can they be heard from shore? The data that I've seen from real acoustic experts like Robert Rand show that we will hear these turbines from the shore. Are you prepared for this island to lose its main source of income and put thousands of people and family-owned businesses out of work? The claim that this will create jobs absolutely pales in comparison to jobs lost. What happens to our real estate values? What tourism surveys have you commissioned to examine the impact of these turbines? If you did the calculations, you would know that BOEM's being irresponsible in leasing in these areas and is affecting billions of dollars of revenue and real estate value. Billions of dollars. Are you prepared for class action lawsuits? Because I assure you, the citizens of LBI, you've heard them on the call today, and there are a lot more. We will not stand by and have our life destroyed without a fight. Many wonder why you did not schedule a public meeting anywhere near LBI. Why would you do such a thing? The closest in Asbury Park, which is 50 miles away. Is this being a good steward? Is this being transparent? I'm curious to know if the average electric bill, what it's going to be like. And if you've done the studies to provide New Jersey residents with that. As good stewards for the environment, how can you proceed given a large number of well deaths? Doesn't that tell you that something is wrong? I was shocked to find out that the NOA Fisheries, it actually issues these level B take authorizations to harass marine life. These takes are necessary for the survey ships to operate their sonar mapping. These takes estimate the number of given species that will be harmed as in the total area. If NOA didn't believe harm would be caused in sonar mapping, then why issue a take? The Atlantic Shore South Take authorization in May last year included 130% of the right whale population. That is outrageous. In summary, we understand that the whole existence for BOEM is to place wind turbines in the ocean, but you must do it responsibly. Live up to your mission and be good stewards. Just because you have a hammer doesn't mean you have to hit every nail. As Shakespeare said, what's done cannot be undone. Please do the right thing and cancel both of these projects, Atlantic Shores North and South. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comment. Our next set of commenters will be Eric Nussbaum, Corinne Blagovich, Anthony Rimikis, Danielle DeBouter, and Scott Aguilar. Our first speaker from that group will be Eric Nussbaum.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide comment. I'm a citizen of New Jersey and a resident of Freehold, New Jersey. I don't belong to any particular group. I don't receive any benefits from offshore wind or from any fossil fuel company. I speak solely on my concerns of the speed of this process that's proceeding. The messaging that's going along with this whole process is that we need to be a leader. We need to capture this manufacturing that's associated with offshore wind. We need to generate all these jobs. We need to get on this right away. And there seems to be a certain expediency that's being pushed in this whole process. But I think one of the things that's being overlooked is the outcomes, is looking at the science behind what's driving what's going on. There seems to be a driving of a fear of global warming, of rising sea, of all the evils that are associated with global warming, increasing CO2 levels, when in the actual reports that are done by Atlantic Shores, the impact on overall global warming will be negligible, excuse me. I've got concerns in that, as they say, oh, we've got 30 years of science that we've looked at. We've got wind turbines from Europe that we can learn from, and we can base our outcomes off of what's happened off of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New York, where there's just a few number of actual offshore wind turbines, not hundreds of them. Many of the studies that are actually put out there that show negligible impacts are based off of modeling that does not have objective data to substantiate the modeling patterning that they are trying to base their outcomes off of. A lot of the scientific data comes to the conclusion that we need more science, that it is continually evolving. On a recent National Academy of Science webinar, they discussed the consensus of hydrodynamics, and one of the takeaway points with there's a significant need for more data, for an improved understanding of what's going on. Many of the articles that are written about impact shows that there is a lack of good data that's available and that's out there. When you're basing your putting offshore wind off of what happens in Europe, Europe does not undergo the hurricanes, the nor'easters, or the impacts from lightning that we would see off of our New Jersey coast. Lightning is ranked as one of the leading causes for turbine failures on land. Why wouldn't it be the case off of our New Jersey coast as well? When we're trying to make comparisons over what's happening to the ocean off of just a couple of turbines versus hundreds, you can't make the same comparisons. When we're basing assumptions off of smaller turbines versus these massive 1,000-foot plus size turbines, we can't make the same comparisons. So in our rush to capture the blue economy, to get the dollar, to be the leader of offshore wind, we're kind of putting science and our understanding of what's going to happen to the side. Not to mention much of the science that's been published is funded by offshore wind. Offshore wind is being driven not by good science, and they're using the normal ecological groups who would be out there supporting or raising issue to the whale deaths and the dolphin deaths. You don't see them out there. Why? Because they're being funded by offshore wind. So when you have research that's being funded by the group that you're trying to advance their agenda, you've got to call into question the validity of that science that's being put out there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next group of commenters are Marguerite Rogers, Susan Royston, Paulina O'Connor, Richard Lutz, and Madeline Forquian. If you all are on and you still wish to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand. Our first speaker will be Paulina O'Connor.
Hi, good evening.
Thank you.
My name is Paulina O'Connor, and I am the Executive Director of the New Jersey Offshore Wind Alliance. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in the thorough and transparent process by BOEM. New Jersey Offshore Wind Alliance is a nonprofit advocacy group dedicated to the clean energy transition through offshore wind development. While I'm here as a representative of the industry, I am also a proud New Jersey resident. Our state and region needs more energy production to meet the demands of the future, and we have an incredible opportunity before us to produce that energy in state in a renewable, emission-free way. I want to thank Atlantic Shores for their extensive work on this proposed project, and I'm here to say that I'm in full support of it. Offshore wind developers adhere to incredibly high standards of project development and construction. They navigate complex regulatory and compliance frameworks and undergo meticulous evaluations by various agencies. Atlantic Shores and its staff is dedicated to New Jersey and its success in combating climate change. I encourage all to embrace this project and support its development. This project and others like it will be critical components of the state's clean energy transition and the offshore wind industry. They will create good paying jobs and ensure accessible to all economic opportunities while providing sustainable and secure energy. Lastly, I'd like to highlight that offshore wind plays a crucial role in mitigating climate change by displacing carbon-intensive forms of electricity generation. By transitioning to clean and renewable energy sources like offshore wind, New Jersey can reduce its carbon footprint and contribute to global efforts to limit the impacts of climate change. For those who say too fast and why offshore wind, and this is untested, I say, one, we have been too slow to react to the changes in our climate, and we see the effects of it every day, all around. We need to take decisive action. We needed to take a decisive action a long time ago. Two, New Jersey is a small, densely populated state. We're limited in what we can do. And while solar and hydrogen are great technologies and have a place here, of course, a diverse portfolio of renewable energy production is important. But offshore wind is uniquely scalable and reliable. And three, New Jersey's not a leader in this industry. There are offshore wind projects around the globe. Climate change continues to pose the single biggest threat to our ocean and its habitat, as well as to the future of this planet. I share in concerns of everyone who has testified for our marine life, and I'd like to convey once again that the biggest threat to our marine life is climate change, vessel strikes, and fishing entanglements. And I'd like to say one last thing, because I hear this phrasing all the time: do not industrialize our ocean. The dictionary definition of industrialization is related to industry or used in or developed for use in industry. Our ocean is used by massive vessels by the import and export industry. It is used by the recreation and hospitality industry, by cruise ships, and of course, recreational and commercial fishing, which are industries, to name a few. To those who say do not industrialize our ocean, you're being disingenuous because it already is. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next set of commenters are David Cowles, David Gatto, Sue Smith, Michael Jacobs, and Lisa Diadone. If you all are on and you wish to make a comment, if you could please raise your hand. Our first speaker will be Michael Jacobs. Michael, you should have received a message to come off of mute.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
All right. Number one, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk. Number two, I'm not sure if it was Einstein for sure that said the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. I applaud those who love the ocean, as I do. I will tell you, one of the earliest speakers, a woman who almost apologized for saying, I cherish the beauty of the ocean, but I don't want to ramble. Ramble on, because what this is about, more than anything else, is that certain people have a connection to the ocean and the beauty of the earth, and there are those that just don't have that part in their soul. I'm not saying they're bad because they don't have it, but they don't understand what certain of us do, those people that spoke from Long Beach Island, those people who cherish the ocean. Absolutely, we should look for other ways of having energy. I love the idea of renewable energy, but there is no doubt in this guy's mind that this started with a lie. The technology, and I'm not going to go into a long speech of how insane it is for anyone who truly understands electricity, salt water, the navigational hazards. It's been said over and over again. But we are talking to people at BOEM who are brainwashed. They bought it, whether it's because of their 401k plans, their salaries, or whatever. They have become disciples of the flat earth theory. And that's the way it is. And we can go on these BOEM meetings over and over again. We're going to see the same smiling faces, the same thank you for your comments. And I'm not criticizing you as individuals. I'm really not. I happen to think you're good people. But I think somewhere between all of your degrees and all of your marine biology and good, wanting to do good for the earth, you've signed up with the devil. This is not a good project. Some of the speakers are so canned that one person, I'm not mentioning names, jobs. It's a rehearsed script. You have two different types of people on these calls. You have those who speak from their heart and from the truth, and you have canned people who come in here and say the same thing over and over again. Ladies and gentlemen, the ocean is precious. It's a gift that was given to us by our parents and their parents before them. And those on this project with BOEM one day will look back and recognize they created a crime. What you are doing to the oceans, and I'm not going to go into the whales. I'm not a dye guy from the 60s, save the whales. Yes, they're important. but that's only a small piece of this tragedy. The tragedy is that we've planted the seed of stupidity. We started with a bad idea right from the top, and now that seed of stupidity is being nurtured and mulched by local governments. BOEM and the rest of the government has crushed local rule. Look what you did in New Jersey. If you don't like what you hear, all we'll do is get rid of the messenger. That's it. Look at what you've done with subsidies. One day the name is Orsted. The next day it's Equinor. The next day it's Atlantic Shores. Then it becomes Vineyard North Wind. This is a scam. It is a tragedy. It is going to be hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide. I am not against them as much on land, even though it's not great, but to put windmills in salt water, that's a scam, and the name of my Facebook page, windmills in salt water versus the voices of reason. I'm proud of the voices of reason I heard on this call today. I'm very proud. There are many people who care. There are those of us that understand what's going on, and then there are those that are brainwashed, that are going forward with a project that one day, in your quiet time, you that work for this are going to recognize, what did I do? This is a tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next set of commenters include Michael Dobley, Angel Ramos, Debbie Gardner, Rose Woods, and Catherine Wynn. If any of you are on and you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand. Our first commenter would be Ramos. You should be receiving a notice to come off of mute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Angeli Ramos, and I'm a New Jersey resident, and I serve as the director for the Sierra Club New Jersey chapter. And I not only cherish the ocean, I actually cherish planet Earth in its entirety. Today, I speak on behalf of over 100,000 members and supporters here in New Jersey and over 3 million nationally. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments regarding the Atlantic Shores Project 3 Notice of Intent for the Environmental Impact Statement. New Jersey Sierra Club, as well as Sierra Club, we support and defend our bedrock environmental laws and regulations like NEPA, and we commend your actions, BOEM, for a robust public process and for all common opportunities to provide recommendations so that we ensure the development of offshore wind generates the least amount of impact as possible. We are a solutions-oriented organization, and we recognize the enormous potential offshore wind offers to our state from an environmental, public health, job growth, and economic perspective. The crude reality is that climate change is very real. It's already occurring. Our communities are being severely impacted, particularly those with crumbling or outdated infrastructure. To make our current situation more dire, our collective electricity demand will continue to grow. Offshore wind provides a unique opportunity for New Jersey to decarbonize our grid, generate a significant amount of clean energy, boost New Jersey's economy, make our air cleaner, and ultimately contribute to curbing the impacts of climate change. This one single project may not solve the entirety of the global climate change problem, but the accumulations of projects like this one across the country and the world, which, as we know, it's already happening, will certainly have a significant impact. Offshore wind is innovation. Offshore wind is a solution for people and the environment. We see and understand the significant amount of collaboration, scientific and technical work by state and federal agencies and the scientific community at large. This has been a long time coming, as just explained to us in these presentations, with data collection and analysis dating back to 2005 and 2009. And we are cognizant of the point that we are in right now, the point at which all projects get their permits and construct. The development of this new source of energy for our country is urgently needed. Thus, BOEM, New Jersey Sierra Club, as well as Sierra Club, urges you to continue to work expeditiously as possible. We support the development of Atlantic Shores Project 3 off of our coast. Lastly, I would like to add that seeing wind turbines on the horizon is actually a symbol of hope to many of us and evidence that we finally got it. No more fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter will be Catherine Nguyen. Catherine should have received a notice to come in. Hi.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Catherine Nguyen. I've been studying environmental issues for decades. I mostly focus on sustainability and plastic pollution. I understand the need for renewable energy. However, this is overlooking a larger problem. If you review other nations and their energy consumption, it will be blatantly apparent that the US does not have an energy acquisition problem, it has an energy wasting problem. There is routine non-compliance with New Jersey's Mandatory Source Separation and Recycling Act of 1987. Other states don't even recycle. I routinely see litter throughout all parts of the United States. We should not be rewarding a country that squanders its energy resources by demanding further destruction of the natural world. There are valid concerns about wind energy in the oceans. Firstly, this has been moved to the oceans because all people on land cannot tolerate the incessant noise, vibrations, installation stress, dissipating particles, and other noxious effects of wind farms. The aquatic world does not have a voice, and we must speak for it. The sound from installation of these windmills deafens aquatic life. Hearing is a critical sensory organ for marine life. A deaf marine mammal will soon be a dead marine mammal. The vibrations from these monstrosities throughout the aquatic domain adds intolerable stress to aquatic organisms. I am disheartened that Americans' quest for more energy will destroy more virgin territory. Rather than introspectively finding ways to reduce our consumption, we plow forward recklessly with scant concern for the industrialization of all natural areas. As an example, one aluminum soda can thrown to the curb or the trash rather than recycled requires we use over 20 times more energy to replace it with new mined ore. America needs to adopt better behaviors that allow for current energy usage to supply us with our lifestyle needs. We are heading in the wrong direction with a demand for more energy. In upstate New York and many other areas, glass is not even recycled. This not only wastes massive amounts of energy, but wastes our globally finite resources. The usage of bottled water in areas of potable tap is absurd. The amount of gas and resources to drive water, a heavy substance, across long distances when we have potable tap, a godsend globally that many would treasure, is backward thinking and extremely harmful to the environment. Not only that, but the disposal of this unneeded plastic bottle causes irreparable harm and expense. The USA is one of the few developed countries that does not routinely use bidets in any form. Rather, we cut the boreal forest, process virgin wood pulp, and drive it all over our country wastefully to wipe our bottoms, rather than use a sanitary, less destructive method known as a bidet toilet seat. These are merely a few examples of our excessive waste. I do not have time to explain them here all. We do way too many. When will we learn? Globally, we are seen as a pariah in the care of the environment. The New York Times reported this past September that our leaders were banned from speaking at the UN climate talks because we are such an ignorant and wasteful country. We must amend our ways. We disgust many countries in the world. France has reached out to us to teach us better behaviors. We should focus on modifying our behaviors, not looking for more ways to exploit and destroy the natural world. I recommend that we ration energy before we exploit new areas. That will teach us and our citizens to preserve, appreciate, and conserve that which we consume too much already. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next set of commenters include Martha Lodge, Robert Egger, Alan Brower, Tara McQuaid, and Susan Kunkel. If any of you are on and you wish to make a comment, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Tara McQuaid will be our first speaker. Tara, you should have received a notice to come off mute.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Pam?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks first for the opportunity to speak. I am one of those people who are going to speak from the heart and not have a prepared statement that really goes over a ton of meta talking points, as they say. I live here. I'm sitting in my office in Little Egg Harbor, Tuckerton, New Jersey. I work over on Long Beach Island, Manahawk, and Stafford. I grew up here. I live in Absecon. I go to Atlantic City, Brigantine, Ocean City, Summers Point. So I've been following this project and these plans for a long time. I am not against renewable energy. I have solar panels on my house, still paying those off. It's considered a wash as far as finance, so I figure, well, I'm doing my part. But I do consider this a pain. It's painful to watch this in the manner in which it's being done. First, the executive orders, even during your presentation so many times, executive order, executive order, executive order. So the will of the people and the feedback from the people and the people who live here, I feel like that's been disregarded. You know, as someone mentioned, the home rule got thrown out the window. I feel like that this is not science driven. This is money driven. That we can all stop pretending that this is completely science driven. It's being done in the name of science, and it's being claimed to being done in the name of science and saving the world and saving the climate. I think everyone can agree that we all want to live in a planet that's livable, that we don't want to be beholden to foreign powers, that we all need to do better. But I feel like that this is sort of being forced down our throats. This is going to be an industrialized prison. To look out on the ocean. And I'm not saying from a property value standpoint. I know sometimes maybe you have this idea that everybody who lives on the water is a bunch of rich people with houses who live on the water, and poor them, they're going to have to look at a couple windmills. They're not windmills, they're massive turbines. I pass the windmills in Atlantic City nearly every day. They're little baby ones. They're not anything near what you have planned off the coast. I am a certified scuba diver. I am a boater. I'm 49 years old, and I was on the ocean at 12 years old boating. So I have swam with the whales. I have swam with sharks. I have swam with dolphins. The carnage that has happened over the past year or so is just unprecedented. I don't care what anybody says. When you live it and you're here and you know the patterns, these creatures are not idiots. These vessel strikes happen for reasons, and yes, they do happen. But what is happening now is because it's such a disruption. And I just don't regard my life as greater than theirs. I just think it's completely just selfish and tragic. Some more practical points as I was listening to the presentation. You're talking about a 30-year lifespan for this project. My solar panels are supposed to last 25 years, and there's billions of dollars being invested in this. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, in 30 years, who's paying to redo this? Who's paying to replace it? Where are these turbines going to go? You spoke about 1.5 to 2 meters of the cable depth in depth in the seabed. That's 5 to 6 feet. And if you live on the Jersey Shore, that you know that every season, every time there's a storm, the Coast Guard has to go out. We have to check the depth of the water. We have to move the channel markers. So who's monitoring the cables in the seabed to see when they come up and how that's being fixed? There's a great concern. There's already studies about 25% reduction as far as tourism, 30% in the fishing industry. So as you go on and on, someone talked about coral bleaching. Well, what about the carpets? What about the bases that these turbines that they're going to wipe out the floor? And where are the scallop beds? Where are the shrimp beds? And by the time they regenerate, it'll be time to rebuild and destroy all over again. So I just feel that there is a better way to do this. I agree with the gentleman who said we need to pace ourselves. We have problems. There is nuclear. There's other clean sources. And I think right now, the way this is being executed, the cure is worse than the disease. Even factors as far as defense, factors as far as boat rescue. You have mariners out on the water, you have boaters, and what happens when you call the Coast Guard? Where is that helicopter coming to rescue people in distress with all that area covered by turbines? So I just feel like there's a lot of practical issues that aren't addressed, and I would like to save the world, but hopefully we can find a better, more practical way.
Thank you for your.
Thank you.
Our next set of speakers include Teresa McCall, Catherine Bizzaro, Robin Schaefer, Polly Weisberger, and Donna Sternick. If any of you are on and you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand now. I'm going to read out the next 5 names, and if any of the first group I read or the second group are on, please feel free to raise your hand at that point. Justin Macco, Glenn Gorab, Samantha Gardner, and Nicole Member. We'll begin with Justin Macco.
Good evening, Pam. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. My name is Justin Macco, and I'm the interim borough administrator for the borough of Seagirt, Monmouth County, New Jersey. And this evening, I represent the mayor and all of our council members. I'm joined also on the line, but separately by 3 of my council members this evening. We will be submitting as well for the Federal Register 3 letters, 1 from our planning board, 1 from the governing body, and 1 from our attorney. But I'm going to paraphrase 2 of the letters this evening. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the borough of Seagirt, our mayor, Donald Fetzer, and our governing body to reaffirm our unwavering opposition to the proposed Windshore project. As a community deeply committed to the protection of our coastal environment and the preservation of our local marine ecosystem, Seagirt has consistently voiced serious reservations and opposition to offshore development initiatives. Our stance remains rooted in our concerns regarding the potential adverse impacts that such projects may inflict upon marine and avian life, aquatic ecosystems, and the critical habitats that sustain them. One of the most significant concerns that we have to this project centers on the potential use of the National Guard Training Center located here in the borough of Seagirt as a location in which the wires would enter the land. The specific area in which they would reach landfall, and we have been identified as the landing site that we've seen in all the bids, is currently in a designated area for endangered piping plovers, oyster catchers, and sea beach amarith. The DEP has purportedly sought to protect these endangered species in this area in which they nest. The disruption will be caused in bringing these wires onshore will eclipse any activities that the DEP has previously expressed concerning these things. Once the wires come onto the beach, the proposals that we have seen, and we have met with several of the onshore bids that was just submitted on April 3rd to the BPU. Those wires and conduits, the cable vaults and the duct banks would run through our borough streets. The borough strenuously objects this. Our infrastructure is affected and the access to our infrastructure that could be impacted. Moreover, it is highly disruptive to our citizens living nearby. Several of these proposals put some of these duct banks within 3 to 5 feet from people's homes and property lines. And in these conversations, we have learned that these wires can go up to 90 degrees Celsius or 194 degrees Fahrenheit at a depth of 5 feet. Beyond that, the borough also objects to this expensive, impractical, and environmentally unsound proposal for the placement of offshore wind turbine clusters. The trenching of the wires from the turbine clusters sources to the land will require cutting into and disrupting essential fish habitat protected by the Magnuson-Stevens Act. The borough at no time has been contacted directly by BOEM or by the BPU until after those bids were submitted on April 3rd. They have never been asked for local government input, nor from our residents. We feel that this project directly, and the only one this evening who has spoken on it. And I agree with the view shed and many of the other comments that have been made, but our community will be immediately and directly impacted by this project. And as I said, we'll be submitting to the register for the record this evening, Pam, from our planning board, the governing body, and our attorney, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter will be Catherine Bizzaro. Catherine, you should get that notice to unmute. Catherine, you might need to look for an extra pop-up box there. Tell you what, we'll move on to the next participant and we'll come back to you, Catherine, once we work through that. Our next commenter will be Glenn Gorav.
Hi there. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. The administration of the state of New Jersey is determined to ruin one of the last beautiful things we have in this state, our beautiful beaches. They are insistent on continuing this destructive project in cooperation with foreign companies to lease millions of acres of our ocean to develop these wind turbines. At first look, one might say these are good, these are green, but they are neither. And we and our children and our children's children will be the victim of this abuse of power, which will do nothing but line the pockets of foreign companies. The following are facts which have been proven. Our beautiful coastline will be ruined forever. Electric rates have been approved by the Board of Public Utilities to be 3 to 4 times higher than they are now. So where other people have spoken about lowering these rates, they're actually going to be higher. Our marine ecosystem and life, whales, seals, dolphins, and more already have been destroyed and will continue to be destroyed with more construction. Construction hasn't even started yet. It's just been the surveying of the ocean. After the 20 to 30-year lifespan of these turbines, the citizens of New Jersey will be responsible for the cost to taking these things out of the water, if they take them out at all. Foreign countries will make billions on this project at the expense of New Jersey citizens, and at the same time control our energy supply in the future. These are friendly countries now, but what if they're not friendly countries? Do you want them to control our energy? Governor Murphy transferred an estimated $1 billion to foreign companies to defray the cost of their project. That $1 billion was supposed to go to the ratepayers in the state of New Jersey. The extent of thousands of wind turbines will interfere with radar and jeopardize the security of our waters or hinder rescues at sea. And again, as it's been mentioned multiple times, wind turbines have not been tested in a hurricane-prone areas like ours. BOEM relies a lot on studies from various federal agencies, one of which is NOAA. But little do people know that years ago, NOAA formed a pact with BOEM for the express purpose of advancing wind power in the state of New Jersey. These companies that are operating this, and BOEM is not really a transparent company at all. They are not a transparent agency. As a matter of fact, there's been a total lack of transparency in this process. These are not green and these are not safe. Now, to get back to the point about the whales being struck by ships, well, guess what? Anybody, you don't have to be a scientist to know that the ocean is a very quiet place. And these whales have evolutionarily developed this tremendous sense of hearing. So these high frequencies of all this surveying, let alone the noise that'll be generated by this pile driving, ruins these mammals' vestibular system. They can no longer hear. And like it was said before, a deaf whale is a dead whale. That's like saying, I fire a gun off in my backyard and it scares the dog. The dog runs across the street and gets hit by a car. Well, is the death from the car? No, the death is from the noise. And all of these companies that are these supposedly the environmental companies, well, the fact of the matter is that conservative estimates are that the wind industry has donated $4.3 million to environmental groups. That raises questions about the conflicts of interest. Oh, and these companies who, a person who may have spoken and said, I'm totally for this. Well, I believe she was a political strategist for the governor. And
Yeah.
Governor Murphy is involved
Not
with
make
this
references
100%.
to-
I apologize for that, but I just couldn't, let that go. So again, these people do have agendas, but this is not clean, this is not green, and it's totally going to ruin the state of New Jersey. Anybody that's interested, voice your opinion.
Thank you for your comment. Just want to note, we have a couple of commenters left. I do have 3 folks who were previously registered to speak. One of whom, Catherine, I noticed you have called in through a mobile phone. So I'm going to actually go ahead and post in just a minute the call-in information in the chat. You maybe find it easier to call in and make your comment as dialed in instead of going through the Zoom app. So we'll post that in just a second for you. I do want to note that once we're finished to the commenters that had pre-registered, we will allow folks who would like to make a comment and have not previously spoken to make a comment. So again, we'll move through the next 3 commenters, and then we will circle back to folks who have not had a chance to speak yet today. My first commenter now is Samantha Gardner.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. My name's Samantha Gardner, born and raised in Central New Jersey. I'm not part of a particular group here, but just a concerned citizen. And as someone who's been going to Long Beach Island, Barnegat Light in particular for my entire life, that's just 27 years, and part of a generation that will be even further affected by this project, I'm really no longer excited to bring my future kids to this place and my home away from home. I'm no longer confident that my children will have a safe and peaceful getaway to the shore because of this project. It is a domino effect. Will those at BOEM and researchers here today be directly affected by this project? Us New Jerseyans will. To me, when I look at our ocean sitting on the amazing beach at Barnegat Light, I do not see an industrialized ocean. I see beauty, peace, and nature. But it's not just about the views, and our concerns over the seascape and our view will unfortunately not change your minds. At the end of the day, you don't really care about our grandchildren or our views at the beach, let's be honest. But what I will say is that the research presented here today is so skewed. For example, you say that this so-called renewable energy will improve pollution. But you also state the wind turbines only last 30 years and are only 75% recyclable. That may sound like a large percentage in the way that you have presented, but considering that these turbines are over 1,000 feet tall each, that is tons of unrecyclable material going into our landfills. According to one study, in 2034, there will be 225,000 metric tons of wind turbine blade waste. That number came from the NIH, National Institute of Health. Furthermore, the reason the turbine parts are non-recyclable is due to the fact that they comprise of epoxy, polyvinyl chloride foam, polyethylene foam, and polyurethane coatings. Not to mention the materials used in these wind turbines are being made in China, India, South Korea, and Iran, to name a few. How can you talk about green and the environment on one hand while damaging the environment somewhere else? Not only in Asia and the Middle East, but also in Iowa, South Dakota, and Wyoming, where we dump this hazard waste. You are just creating more environmental challenges. How can you say these wind turbines will improve climate change? It does not solve the problem. It just dumps it in our New Jersey shores and in other backyards. You also claim that this will create a few thousand jobs. Do these few thousand jobs really outweigh the negatives of the massive costs of keeping these wind turbines maintenance, for example, de-icing? That is not only a waste of resources that could be better used elsewhere, but yet another waste of tax dollars. These wind turbines are not only hurting marine life in the ocean, but as many people have already said, the seabeds that will be destroyed by the cables. Have you ever tried the world famous Barnegat Light scallops? So now you are destroying the ocean, land, and air. Look into Germany's wind turbine failure. German power prices have skyrocketed, there are blackouts, and idyllic land is now industrial wasteland. I'll wrap it up by saying I encourage you all to reconsider your support of this project. BOEM, I encourage you to please take our comments and concerns seriously. Come visit Long Beach Island, have our Barnegat Light scallops until you won't be able to anymore. I'm not confident we will be heard, but being only 27 years old, I really hope and pray that us New Jerseyans, beautiful Jersey Shore, our country, and our world will not be ruined. Again, this is a domino effect. What is the true goal here? For all of those who think it's saving the planet, you, excuse me, but you, as others have said, have been brainwashed. There could be other negative effects that have not been studied or researched either. We only get one Earth. Please reconsider for us and our future generations, like your own grandchildren and their children. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. My next speaker is Nicole Member. Nicole, you should have gotten a note to come off of mute.
Yes, I got it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I would like to thank those who are speaking in opposition to this. I am from Northwest New Jersey. I do not live near the ocean, so this does not directly impact me. I am not speaking on behalf of any groups, although I do volunteer for many environmental groups. I remember growing up, gosh, it's probably back in the 80s, and there is this whole push that we have to, we have to stop using paper bags. We have to use plastic bags. We have to use plastic bags to save the trees. And that was I guess you could say, propaganda at the time. Let's fast forward 30 years later. What do we have now? We have Amazon who ship boxes within boxes made out of trees, wrapped with plastic bubble wrap. Okay. So now we have this plastic. Oh wow, plastic is harmful because it contains PFAS in it. And a lot of, as some people have mentioned, most of the stuff is not recyclable. And most of the time it is not recycled. So what do we have? We have plastic bags floating in our waters, creating microplastics, which has shown that fish and wildlife has consumed. If you ever had a swimming pool in your backyard, one of the ways that people used to heat their pool, it was called a solar cover, was basically a plastic cover. So as we sit here and wonder why our oceans are warming, perhaps it has to do in part with those plastic that is floating in the ocean that is trapping heat inside. And furthermore, I know our politicians like to say they like to be sustainable, they want to save the environment, but yet we still have development going up near rivers and streams by me, right? So when it rains, what happens when it rains? It hits the concrete, and then from the concrete, it's directed into our streams. So what happens? Well, we're kind of like warming up our streams, we're warming up our lakes, and then people like to mow their lawns up into and get a view of the lake or stream or whatever, and then they fertilize their lawns, and then we wonder why we have a HAP situation. So there's a lot of things that don't make sense, that we could be more environmentally impactful. But what does this have to do with the wind turbines? Basically, as people are saying, this is kind of a scam. There has been studies to show that, as people have mentioned, that the wind turbines, the blades of them are pretty much buried in landfills because they're not recyclable. Furthermore, there are other ways that we could be doing to minimize, there's other ways to conserve electricity. And also, as an EMT, I'm sorry, I'm skipping around here, but basically, let me go back to this. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that we can use to conserve electricity. And one of them is, why do we have these ginormous houses? Why do we have places where they have an AC going at 60 degrees when it's like 90 degrees outside? So when you walk inside, you're freezing right away. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing to minimizing our energy. And then my next question, as we are growing, yes, we are still building houses and industrial complexes, and these wind turbines are supposed to power these places. And as people have mentioned, what happens if there's a hurricane and it takes out all these wind turbines that's supposed to power all these places? Now, if you remember when Hurricane Sandy hit and we lost power, it was pretty much mass chaos because people cannot live without, most people feel like they can't live with over a week without power, right? So people are starting to go crazy, so that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, so from an EMT perspective, and then if the power grid goes out, how long is it going to take to rebuild those wind turbines to put those people who lost power back into service? So I thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm sorry I lost track. It's getting late.
Understood. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your comment. I do note, Catherine, that you are still on and you've got your hand raised. I'm going to try one more time to unmute you from here to see if we can connect. I would encourage you, if you're not able to make your comment verbally tonight through this platform, to provide your comments through regulations.gov. Again, all comments, whether they're submitted orally this evening or in writing, are given the same weight in processing. So at this point, those are all of the folks who had pre-registered to make a comment today. If you didn't pre-register, but you would like to make a comment, I'd ask that you please use the raise your hand button on your Zoom platform, or that you dial *9 if you called in using a phone, and I'll call your name in the order in which you raised your hand. And again, you would then receive that pop-up box asking you to unmute. If you're dialed in by phone, you'd please use *6 to unmute and remute. I'll give folks just a minute to think through if there's a comment that they would like to make. Great, thank you. I see we have several hands raised. We'll begin with Roberta Elizabeth Mouch. You should be receiving a notice to come off of mute. Looks like you might have dropped off. We'll move on to our next speaker. That would be Anthony Rose. You should have that notice to unmute now.
Right, I got that. Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you.
We got to be quick. All right, I'll be as ready as I can. Yeah, I'm from originally from Staten Island, and I've been diving the Jersey Shore for 20 years. I'm with the Natural Resources Protective Association, and there is a lot of concern that this hasn't been well thought out. But personally, the planet is burning up. There's no question the planet is burning up. And people complain. They say, well, they ought to do something, but nobody knows who they is. Well, now the government agencies are trying to unmute. I'm sorry, I accidentally got muted. Are we there?
Yep, we can still hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So anyhow, we're making an attempt now to save the planet. And everyone who wanted to save the planet is now saying, well, yeah, but not this way. Is climate change going to go away by itself? If we should sit and do nothing and just watch, and somehow it's going to get better. I don't believe that that's so. There's no question conservation is needed. We need to stop wasting energy. And there has been movement. Look at the adoption of LEDs and energy efficient devices. So we need to go in that direction, but we need to do something. We need to change the paradigm. We need to change what we're doing. And if we don't put electric cables, there's going to be gas lines. And we fought that to stop getting gas lines. So we do need to do something. I'm trying to read my notes. In the Gulf of Mexico, oil rigs were put in, and there was this construction activity and the noise of ships, and this was going to decimate the life in the Gulf. But now it's turned out, as these decommissioned rigs now have become a sanctuary, and New York Harbor is another busy place. There's a lot of commerce, there's shipping, there's all kinds of activity, but New York Harbor has become a sanctuary. The harbor herons. Nature just says, look, leave me alone. Be where you are, but leave me alone, and it'll happen. I've been diving out of Belmar Point Pleasant for the last 20, 25 years. And all along Long Island and the Jersey Shore inshore, it's a flat, sandy, muddy bottom. And what animals need is structure. I'm looking forward to seeing the turbines put in place to provide structure. I think that this will become a sanctuary for animals. I think that they'll grow there. And Europe, now, of course, there's concerns that this money is going to foreign countries, foreign enterprises. Well, of course, because we've been subsidizing the oil industry here. We haven't got any companies to do this. So we have to go out of the country until we develop our own. But I'm sure that that's going to happen as time goes on, as it matures. Questions about whales. Whales are in New York Harbor. We're seeing whales off Staten Island. Dolphins in the busiest place on the planet. We're seeing dolphins, seals, whales. Life is back. And if we have structure, the animals will be there. And how about all the dead whales that are washing up in Europe, in the North Atlantic, off France, off Norway, off all the places that have had wind farms for the last decade? It's not happening. I think a lot of the concern is overblown. Now, the blades haven't been recycled. There's no question about that. But it's the same thing as electric vehicles. No one's recycled the batteries because there haven't been batteries. Now, as that economy is maturing, recycling is starting to happen. And there are studies, people are starting to look at ways to recycle. In fact, one of the ways is to take those blades, those carbon fiber blades, and use them as artificial reef. Because again, the animals create structure. And I look forward to diving the wind farms, because I think that's going to be an animal sanctuary. So there's no question, these do need to be monitored. They do need to be maintained. And we will keep watching to make sure that the government does monitor and maintain and take care of business. But I think that we also need to move forward and do something to help save the planet. Thank you. Thank you for letting me have my 2 cents.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter, it looks like Roberta is back with us. So Roberta, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, thank you. Sorry for that blip. I'm going to bring up subjects that haven't been discussed. One was, it was almost touched on, the EIS. Is there anything being done for the expense of decommission or for catastrophic event? Are they setting up a bond fund or some type of insurance for the case of bankruptcy? I mean, since this is falling upon the American citizens, we're at risk. What I object to, I mean, first of all, I am opposed to the wind farm, offshore wind farm. I'm on Cape Cod. They want to lay these cables right at the most pristine beaches on Cape Cod. So we're having a real problem as well here. So that was one question. I don't hear much discussion. Also, the problem of waking, where they build one wind farm upon wind farm, everybody's getting on the bandwagon. There's a problem of 20% reduction of power due to turbulence of the wake effect. Is that something that I didn't hear anyone discussing that? I'm trying to touch on things that aren't being touched upon. This is something that also that really, it just reminds me of just the whole thing to where they mandated us to wear masks. I mean, here we are in a situation where this industry has a history of not being economically feasible, yet it's being forced upon us American citizens at our expense without our permission. And to me, it just represents a situation which our country was founded on, taxation without representation. Why don't I get to choose? Why it just seems like all the power is just placed here, and I have no power. No matter what I say, it doesn't matter. Isn't this my country? Why do I end up having to pay for all the damages for mistakes that are not really thought out properly? I just wanted to touch on those things. very much against. Oh, and the last one that I thought about. Here we are in a situation where we could be on brink of World War III, and I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I don't. I mean, what kind of studies have been done? I didn't hear anybody mention this about how this affects the military. I mean, it's a conflict of safety for our Eastern Shoreboard. I feel that makes us vulnerable and in protecting us in a war. That's not, nobody mentioned anything about that. So I just wanted to bring up things that weren't talked about. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Our next commenter will be Craig Kears. You should receive that notice to unmute now.
Okay. I don't know if you can hear me yet.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent. I'd like to thank you for hosting this forum. I'd like to come up with a few comments. I agree with some of the ones that have been on before. Their ideas. I personally believe that renewable energy it's a great idea for people. Solar panels on a roof. You have a small wind turbine. That's not a bad idea, especially if you want to live off grid. But unfortunately, I feel that the avowed benefits of the economies of scale don't work when it comes to figuring in the environmental costs of wind turbine installation on a massive industrial scale. And I don't see how we can afford to increase our energy bills by using so-called renewables, which are subsidized on such a great scale. We have, for example, if you look at Great Britain and Germany, other countries that have renewables, Great Britain their bills have gone up 83%. They're not going down since they've installed so many wind turbines and solar panels. They're gone up dramatically, especially paying for such incredibly expensive structures. Germany used to be the envy of Europe for their heavy industry, and now it's tanking because they've been forced to rely on renewables. That's not a plus. There's also the fact that you can look online anywhere, and there's innumerable articles pointing towards an impending massive shortfall in supplies of copper, for one thing. And how many miles of copper you're going to need to have for these things. 30 years ago, 3 to 4% of copper ore would produce pure copper. And now you can get 0.1% of actual copper yield in some of these mines. Also, as far as Great Britain goes, who relies on renewables, I think they're 51% of their energy is based on renewables. They are, a quarter of their population is energy poor. And they have to figure out, do they want to stay warm in winter or do they eat? And so those are things to, some things to keep in mind. France doesn't have the same energy problems of other European countries, as over 70% of their energy is from nuclear. You also have the concerns of what to do with turbine blades. They don't last 10 years. You have to burn them or bury them because they're not thermoplastics. You can't just melt them. And we also have, not far from where I live in New Jersey, they had the Oyster Creek nuclear reactor went online. They started functioning in 1969 and they closed in 2018. That's almost 50 years, which many people feel would be a much better way to put your resources to work for something that lasts much longer than wind turbines will. A number of years ago, I had when I was a teacher for 34 years. One of my students said, my other teachers are telling us all the time about climate change and that we need to worry about it. It's going to be dangerous. And she said, "Is this all true? Because this is something I need to be concerned about." I said, "You know what? I really don't know as much as I should." So I said, "You know what I'll do is I'm going to check it out. I'm going to investigate that." And I did. And the more I learned about climate change, the less I felt that people were telling us the truth, and more I decided to look into things. You could also look at the fact that CO2 mitigation strategies that are expensive enough to be affordable will be ineffective. And strategies that are costly enough to be effective will be unaffordable. That wasn't my idea. That was a fellow named Lord Monckton. I thought it was pretty much on the mark with that. There was somebody that spoke earlier about saving the whales, and the fellow that started that, his name was Patrick Moore. I would suggest people look into Patrick Moore and Richard Lindzen, Willie Soon, and William Happer if you want to learn about the realities of climate, and it's not what they say it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. Our next commenter will be Lori Max.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks again for holding this. Although it is not close to where the majority of the stakeholders are, but at least it is a forum that we can express our views. Again, I am not prepared. I don't have talking points. I am not paid by anybody. I am just a 60-year-old woman who is a New Jerseyan, who loves the shore, and I love LBI. I love all the shores. And this project is going to be a disaster. I am looking at this project through the lens of I am a critical care nurse. My family also is in finance. So when we look at things, we kind of use that type of a perspective to analyze and make decisions. As a nurse, I look at this and I say to myself, first, do no harm, okay? I do not see how you can possibly look at these facts, and they are facts. We have dead whales. We have dolphins. We have studies upon studies of smaller turbines that have had damage, that have affected the fishing industry. There's noise issues. There's safety issues. There's tons of problems. And the kicker of everything is we haven't even studied a turbine this big and this close to the shore. And decisions are being made. And I don't see how you can possibly go forward with this plan. It's craziness. Looking at it through the lens of through finance, you have to cost benefit out. Financially, it makes zero sense. You are trading one environment for another. You say that you're creating jobs, you're losing jobs. You say that our environment is going to be better. BOEM has even said the impact will be horrific. I look at some of the previous speakers, and I guess I'm a little confused where they came from. Fellow healthcare professionals who are blaming asthma. Yeah, yes, pollutants do aggravate asthma.
Interrupt for 1 second. Again, if we could keep comments away from specific comments from other commenters.
Okay. But I have to say, it's delusional to think that asthma will be helped by it going through with this project. Asthma is caused there's family history, there's allergies, there's viral impacts, smoking, obesity, and yes, air pollution. But unless you're going to go and fix everything else, if you think that air pollution is going to really cure asthma, proverbially, it's like spitting in the ocean. Mm-mm. You know, I want to say, I hope that BOEM is going to make their final decision by, I implore you to ignore the politics. Don't go looking at your marching mandate, we must be green, and push it through. You do your due diligence. You pro and con it out. You listen to the people that are stakeholders, okay? And quite frankly, holding meetings in New York when it's Long Beach Island that's taken the biggest hit is really not making me feel confident that you're doing so. And, you know, I implore you to follow your heart and use your power to protect our shore, because guess what? That's not renewable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter is Anthony Tadeo.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Anthony Tadeo, and I'm a campaigns organizer with New Jersey Legal Conservation Voters. Embracing offshore wind represents a critical stride in bolstering our resilience against the impending threat of climate change. This transition not only brings about environmental benefits, but also signifies a transformation shift towards a more sustainable and prosperous future. By harnessing the potential of offshore wind, we have the opportunity to foster cleaner air and improved public health outcomes for all residents of the state.
I apologize, Anthony, if I could just interrupt for 1 second. Would it be possible for you to slow down just a little bit in your speaking so our court reporter can catch up?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you so much.
Moreover, embracing offshore wind aligns with our state's renewable energy goals, providing a pathway to increase job opportunities, enhance air quality, and combat climate change. The anticipated benefits of this project are immense, with an estimated annual reduction of 6.3 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions, equivalent to removing 1.2 million cars from the road, and significant contributions to New Jersey's economy totaling $2.2 billion in value added. Offshore wind promises to bring sustainable growth and prosperity to our communities. Atlantic Shore's proposal to construct the wind turbines and several substations underscores the scale of the endeavor. As we safeguard the well-being of our current generations, we must also consider the legacy for our future ones. By prioritizing renewable energy solutions like offshore wind, we lay the foundations for environmental stewardship and intergenerational equality. Embracing offshore wind is about more than environmental responsibility. It's a moral obligation and strategic investment in our longevity and vitality of our communities. By embracing this renewable energy source, we pave the way for a brighter, cleaner, and more sustainable future, one that benefits us all and for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next commenter is going to be Robin Federico. Should be receiving that notice to come off of mute. Robin, just checking to see if—
Oh, okay. I think I'm unmuted now. How are you?
You are good, thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. My mom has a house in LBI. We've been going there since I was a child, and I'm very, very devastated about the wind turbines. I go there. It's like my soul, my peace. The love of my life is to go there on that beach and meditate, see the dolphins in action, and just to think about how these turbines are going to go up and destroy the ocean and hurt the ocean bed. And my sons also like to fish. They really enjoy it. My one son is a recreational clam bedder, so I am understanding that the clam beds are going to be destroyed. So it's very, very upsetting. And also these turbines are so close to the shoreline that I don't really know that there's any proof that it's not going to hurt people's health, which is very, very concerning. Some studies had said that the noise itself could cause like vertigo, sleep disturbances, nervousness, neurological conditions. And I'm asking you to please keep that all in mind, because it's not worth all that you're saying for renewable energy to damage as much as that's going to be damaged with the fishermen, with the commercial fishermen, recreational people that rely on the seafood there in the island itself. I mean, I know people that run a clam chowder place, and what's he going to do like for his business? He'll be out of business. So according to going and creating jobs, I don't understand that part, because all those fisheries will be out of, really hurt with the business. And no one's going to really want to go there to look at the turbine, so it will hit the tourism as well. So it is very concerning. And also that they weren't tested with that size and magnitude, in case, I know someone mentioned about the hurricane weathers, and that's very concerning with me as well. And my understanding, they're not intermittent, because you can't judge the wind and how the wind is going to be from day to day. And plus it's ran by chemicals or fossil fuels, so you're really not getting away from it. And when I keep on hearing speakers talk about climate change, I just can't feel like I'm being lied to, because it says right in BOEM that it's going to have nothing to do with climate change. So I wish that people that are speaking will stop saying that, because it's just a blatant lie. And it's really, really disturbing how the public's being lied to. And I do agree that the people from LBI should have a public hearing on the island and not so far away, so therefore they could have their voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I think we have one additional speaker, Margaret Bagley. You should receive that notice to come off mute.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Hi, yes, thanks for the opportunity to speak. This is probably my fifth Zoom from BOEM, and also I attended a session in Atlantic City last summer sometime, personally, to speak to some of the BOEM representatives there. I can't help but say that I don't feel there was any real transparency, and everything that was presented was very canned and staged, and it was more like a pep rally. And I'm sorry to say that. I was really looking for some good information. Got into discussions with the marine specialists about, is there potential that this behavior could affect some of the marine life? And bottom line, admittedly, they said, yes, there's a potential, so they're admitting it. You guys are admitting it. And I don't think anyone that's a opponent of offshore wind would deny that we need to get away from fossil fuels. I mean, I don't think anybody's advocating for fossil fuels on any of these calls. But there's so many other alternatives, and I'd like to know what alternatives BOEM is seriously considering, other than these offshore wind projects. Because at the end of the day, what's planned for the state of New Jersey are 11 leases of about 100 turbines each, which you're talking 1,000 turbines lining the coast, which of a small coast that we have that's barely, a little over 100 miles, that's a wall of turbines. It's just unfathomable to me that this would even be something that would be under consideration. I also had a concern about, they're talking about hurricanes and nor'easters. During Sandy, we had no electricity. It was November, it was cold. I had my gas stove to run heat. We had our generator. We helped our neighbors. I mean, putting all the eggs in these offshore wind turbine, baskets is going to be a recipe for disaster. We just had a pretty significant earthquake here in New Jersey. Has anybody studied what could happen with with that. Looks like California, they float their turbines. So now we're going to put these things in the ocean and potentially have earthquakes. I mean, that's not unreasonable to think. I also had a concern about, I spoke to one of these marine specialists at the Atlantic City event about, they said they had observers on these surveying vessels that would be on the lookout for whales. And if they were to spot a whale, they would stop whatever activity they were doing until the whale would leave the area. I'm just curious to know whether any of the whales that have been washing up deceased were actually alive and well and spotted by any of these observers. And if there's a way we can get that information, if it's recorded, if it's reported to someone somewhere, was the whale alive a week ago and now it's not, and it was spotted alongside one of these vessels? That's something that's a curious thing to consider. Anyway, and a lot of the comparison, the Block Island, small farm, few turbines, small turbines, Atlantic City, that's like a joke. They're tiny turbines. You can't really compare them to what's going on. And I just am really, I'm from Northwest Jersey, so I'm not on the beach. I'm on the go to the beach a lot because I love it. It's in my soul as well. But I just feel like people's feelings are being disregarded, and a lot of these canned responses that are scripted, they're just so disingenuous. It's just like blah, blah, blah when you listen to them. So I hope you really listen to the people who really care and are really concerned. And I think pollution and conservation are the keys to successfully helping with climate change. And it's actually either very presumptuous to think that man can control the climate in general. I mean, you can help preserve things, but we can't control the sun, we can't control the moon, can't control the galaxies. So that's all part of the earth. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment. We do have one additional commenter, and that is Peggy Middle.
Hi, thank you for taking my comment at this very last moment. I have to say I'm also not prepared, but I just wanted to make a few statements after listening to what's been said tonight. I live in Manchester, New Jersey. I've spent many summers at the Jersey Shore and many summers at Long Beach Island, in particular in Beach Haven. And honestly, when I go down there now, I don't recognize what I used to see. When I used to go over the bridge and turn left, there was nothing there. It was a few little shacks, but it was all beach. And yes, I totally get what people talk about when they say how relaxing it is and how wonderful it was. Well, I say was, and I understand that people still feel that way about it, but it changed for me. In any case, I support this project because I think that climate change is a major problem, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But first, I just want to say that, and I want to agree with the person that, well, I can't say specific people, but yes, we need to reduce waste. Yes, we need to recycle more. And it's terrible that we aren't recycling as much as we can. That's all in the mix. But right now, this issue of energy and how we are using energy. I've been doing this for 40 years. That shows you my age. Renewable energy and conservation. And during that time, what we heard of 40 years ago, when we could have been doing a lot more in renewable energy and a lot more in conservation and energy reduction, is people said, well, we got to test it out a little bit here, a little bit there, but slow down. We don't want to go too fast. We got to test it out. The fossil fuel companies have lied to us. They are over-subsidized, and everything from extraction to land use to transportation, everywhere they are subsidized to the hilt. And I don't hear anybody complaining about that. Fossil fuels kill us. They are hurting the people. Go listen to the people in Newark. Go listen to the people who live in Camden. Go listen to the people who are dealing with this every day. And no, maybe it doesn't cause asthma all by itself, but it definitely adds to people's asthma. So I believe after all of this and all of these years of doing it, we are at a crisis point. We need to do everything that we can all at once. We need to do energy reduction. We need to do efficiencies. We need to do as many renewables, solar, geothermal, everything we can think of. And in this state, we are even now going to be, we are 40% nuclear, and the current plan is to continue with 40% nuclear. If people want to see data and how much we're using in what sectors and how we're going to fill that up, look at the energy master plan. There's a lot of numbers there, and you can see how we're using energy and try to come up with what do you think the alternative should be. So I encourage everyone, let's all change our lifestyles, use less, get heat pumps, use geothermal, use everything you can and reduce our energy load because we're going to need it all. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the BOEM people who put this on. And I really, really, my heart goes out to you for taking all the insults that you've taken. I know that you're doing your job, as many of us are doing ours. My job, by the way, is I'm a full-time volunteer. Everything I say is not paid for by anything but my non-income. And I really also feel I take, I don't appreciate people acting as if because I have put together prepared statements that there's somehow I'm bought and paid for. No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. At this point, I don't see any additional hands raised to provide public comments. And as we've discussed previously, you can submit your comments through regulations.gov or through the US mail by May 2nd, 2024.